Hello and welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show with the epic return of Brendon Nelson, Seahawks Brendon Nelson, of course, coming back as we do this as a weekly gig. Me on my side here in the channel, and then him over on his side. Where is his side? Well, he's Seahawks Brendon Nelson. He has a great Seahawks channel here on YouTube, covers a lot of great content. And so we like to come back together with a meeting of the minds here and see what we can cook up as far as ideas and just maybe where we're looking at as far as the general state of the team. How's it going, my man? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I mean, I wish we were playing this weekend, obviously, but all things considered, I guess things are going pretty good. We finally notched a respectable win on the board. I'll take something from that, and we'll see what happens this offseason. That's all I can say right now, right?
That's right. Hey, man, a man who's gone through the desert will take a couple drops of water and say that quenched his thirst. So I get it. I'm the same place. Hey, I'll take it. And this season, you'll take whatever light you can possibly get. Good to see too. You're not underwater or without power. I was thinking this week maybe it was going to be fire. I wasn't sure with you on that one with what you're dealing with last week.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. It's been an interesting week plus for me. So
That-
I don't know what to say other than just when it rains, it pours.
Yeah, when it's going bad, it does go bad. Well, let's start the top off here, Brendon, with as we tend to do, a review of the last game of the season. As you just spoke about a second ago, a quality win against a tough opponent. Opponent's giving you some hard games over the last couple of years. You win here, you lose there, so to speak. Um, what did you kind of take away on this game in general terms, but then also within the bigger picture?
Well, it was probably the best all-around game we played this year. And there was definitely a lot that I liked. We ran the ball really effectively against a credible run defense that was missing some players, don't get me wrong. But it is a credible run defense. You can no longer say that Rashad Penny can only do well against the Lions and the Bears and the Texans and what was the other team? I can't even remember.
What did he do? Yeah, he had so
Whoever
you're
it
right
was who
though.
he ran all over, some irrelevant team that isn't good. But he finally did it against a real team, and Jake Curhan continues to look like the real deal. But one thing that kind of caught me early in that game was we were not just running behind the right side of the line every play that was good. A lot of our positive runs in that first part of the game came behind the left side too. So it wasn't just one thing. So what we learned from that, I think, is that it's not just a Jake Curhan breakout party. Some
Mhm.
people after the first several games of the Rashad Penny Renaissance were saying, I mean, all of his big runs are behind Curhan. So this is really a Curhan thing. It has nothing to do with Penny. After this game, I think it's a little harder to say that. So I liked that. Wilson, for the most part, played a good game. He made really two mistakes that involved holding onto the ball too long. Unfortunately, they were mistakes that ended in complete disaster. And as we head towards this offseason, where it looks like we're just going to kind of run it back, which we'll get into later, he has given you some things to build on, to at least hope that maybe another year in this system is really going to unlock his full abilities. And I was somebody who said all along that I'm ready for things to not go great this year because it is a new first year in a new system that is antithetical in many ways to the systems he was in before.
Yeah.
And on defense, I mean that Cardinals team, you're not going to shut down their run game because they got Kyler Murray. As long as they have Kyler Murray, it's hard to say you're going to completely take away the run game because of the things he does. But we did well against the run. Jordan Brooks obviously had a pretty great game outside of that one drive where he forgot how to tackle. Both starting corners played awesome, I think. I think they both may have had, other than DJ Reed's 2 interception game, may have had their best games of the season.
Mm-hmm.
The pass rush was there. We finally got a pass rush 4 months too late. That was one of the best games I've seen from the pass rush all year. If they had played like that the whole year, I think we'd be in the playoffs right now. And most of the stuff you take away from this game is definitely pretty positive. So what does it mean? Well, we see this every year. Teams that are bad have a couple things go really well for them at the end of the season sometimes. And some of it is going to be real, but some of it's going to be fool's gold. And that's the case with what we have right here. If you look at all these players that really came to play after the team was basically eliminated, Dunlap, Rasheem Green, Jake Curhan, Rashad Penny, Maybe you could throw Ethan Posick in there. On and on and on. All these guys who really started showing what they can do over the last 6 to 7 weeks of the year. Some of it is real, but some of it's fake. And the hard part this offseason is going to be figuring out what's real and what's fake. So we're going to have a lot of time to talk about that, but there was a decent chunk to like in this game. And I'm pretty happy. I'm happy that I was able to eventually watch it.
Yeah, you had, I believe you lost your power there for the second half.
Correct.
Yeah, agreed. I thought defensively, where did Cody Barton, I think, had a little bit of a lesser game on this. Did you get the love from what he was showing last week? Did you kind of get that feel too?
I saw some stuff that I liked from him. I saw some stuff that I didn't like from him. But to me, he's clearly like physically limited in terms of his physical abilities. He doesn't seem like he's going to be able to do all the things that we want a player to do, obviously, but I still see where he can be good. He did not really impress me in coverage in this game, unfortunately. Both of our linebackers got destroyed in coverage in this game. I was looking at the metrics last night. It's not good.
No.
But that's kind of to be expected with Jordan Brooks. With Barton, I was hoping for a little bit better. But the thing that I really come away from after that game is that I didn't notice a huge difference between having Wagner out there and having Barton out there. So that's another indication to me, and we'll talk more about this later, that it really is time to move on. Because I'm hard-pressed to say the defense looked that much worse with Bobby out there versus having Barton out there. And if you're going to tell me Wagner's worth $20 million, I'm going to point to that and go, well, then why isn't the defense noticeably worse when he's not out there? I'm not seeing it. So even though Barton didn't play a great game, I don't think he played terribly. He did make some plays out there. He did do some things that I liked. And to me, it's just a learning lesson. You learned that Bobby Wagner is not worth the money he's making because no matter how good his stats are, he's just not having a big positive impact on this defense. I mean, Barton had like 12 tackles in that game. So realistically, is there a huge difference there? I mean, yeah, Wagner is a great tackle farmer, but if you extrapolated Barton's 12 tackles out over a full season, he'd probably farm tackles like that too. So I don't know. That's kind of my main takeaway there. It's not so much a pro Barton thing. It's just trying to sort out what we do this offseason. And I think one thing we really learned from this game was that Wagner doesn't have $20 million worth of impact on this D.
No, yeah, I agree with you there. And then we will get to the because I think that's the key conversation here is not, to me at this point, in full agreement with you, whether or not you bring back Bobby Wagner at the final year of his deal. That's not the question. That question's been kind of decided here. The question really will come down for us to talk about is restructure. Are you even willing to restructure? And then what is the price you're willing to restructure at? Because or it just becomes, hey, no, I'm going to go cheap on this. I'm going to put those assets fully to somewhere else, like an offensive line, for instance. And that may be a route that they go. They don't tend to get cold blooded with stuff, but we'll dive into that because we're going to go position by position on later on in the stream with that. But that is an interesting, it's kind of why I asked about that Cody Barton. I want to see where your head was at on a little bit of his performance as far as that replacement goes. Well, I'm like you. I kind of saw all the basic same things you did. I thought Russ looked more comfortable in this offense, been more inventive, I think, over the last couple of weeks. Wouldn't you agree with some of the stuff Waldron's done? A little bit more exotic, a little bit more motion based. I like that aspect of it. To your point on that, not just hammering the ball. They already hammer the ball basically inside anyway. Now you've been basically hammering inside and to the right. You're at least now kind of drifting a little to different spaces. Phil Haynes played, I think, a right guard in this game and played all right in that role. Didn't he play?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, I think you're correct.
So again, he held up pretty well, which again is going to at least help us as far as from a depth angle, whether or not Curhan or Forsythe or Haynes can be established as starters going into the future. They've at least established themselves as pretty quality depth, better quality depth than what you've had over the last 3 or 4 years as we go forward, probably at a very bare minimum. So we got these couple of dominating wins, and sorry, Kitty is definitely in needy mode here. We've got these couple dominating wins at the end of the season, and frankly, Brendon, I have this general feeling, and it's a little bit of an annoyance for me, quite frankly, that this has shifted the narrative. These final 2 games shift a narrative that was starting to get into a point where we all were kind of agreeing, okay, something needs to be changed here. We might disagree that there's changes on what those changes should be and whose fault it is and where to put blame. But we were not in disagreement, I think, as a fan base at that point of, man, this is something's really broken here and it needs to be fixed. And it seems now like these last two games suddenly have kind of, people were almost like they were all, waiting for this chance to happen, waiting for some, glimmer of hope here so that they could just say, run it back. Do you get that same kind of feeling here?
Mostly no. Mostly the people on my channel, the people I talk to, they get it. They understand those two games happened after we were already eliminated. They understand that just 2 weeks ago, we were sitting here talking about losing to the Bears and Nick Foles without maybe their three best players. A game where all three aspects of your team, offense, defense, and special teams, found a special way to blow that game. Just really had to screw it up. Like, that's 2 weeks ago. If you have already forgotten about that game, then I don't know what that says about your long-term memory capabilities, but that was 2 weeks ago. All right. So it's not like we went on some 6-0 hot streak at the end of the year. I'm thinking about the Dan Quinn Falcons, where the 2019, they started like, what was it? They started like 3-9.
Yeah.
And then they won 4 straight to end the season, including a couple of good teams. And they were like, okay, let's run it back. No, that's not what happened here even. We lost 2 games, including 1 game to a terrible Bears team. You beat up on the Lions, which that doesn't even count as an NFL team because the Lions were playing their backups. Like, literally across the board, they had backups.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even a real NFL team. I can't even count that. Come on, guys. Let's have some standards here.
Yeah.
Cardinals win? Yeah, Cardinals win was good. That was great. That was cool. I saw a lot of things that are encouraging. But it is about the body of work. And the body of work this year was not particularly good. And I'm not seeing a whole lot of people in my Discord, in my comments, in my stream saying, you know what? These 2 games have convinced me we need to run it back. So I don't get that sense. Maybe from the general fan base, you're seeing that, but I'm not really seeing it from my guys.
Well, I think our subs that we have on ours are a little more smarter than your average bear. I think, and that's a credit to them as much as anything, because I think that I've, like you, have not heard as much about it from my end of people saying, but you do feel in general terms where we're going to hear today, basically unofficially, the Carroll returns. And this is, again, we'll talk about that in just a second here as we talk, kind of finish these last 2 points up on this game. But, it's the part that I've seeing the shift. That general fan base was in a general state a couple of weeks ago, and it's just now it's shifted right over into here. And then you hear the 710s and the 950, the people out there in the radio are just, team's great. We're gonna run it back. Here we go. You hear very little criticism about a team that's went really badly this year, got their quarterback broken, had more go wrong than it went right. It's kind of startling to me, just a little bit with that. And so I'm hoping we get some kind of change this offseason. But frankly, Brendon, I think that there's these 2 wins, not these 2 wins alone. There's other things within this season, right? The scoring defense, Russell being hurt, blah, blah, blah. But I think that this does mean that now we run everything back with everybody. Would you not agree at this point?
I kind of feel like the decision had been made independent of these 2 games. Okay. Like I when Pete Carroll came out the day after maybe the worst, most embarrassing loss of his tenure as a Seahawks coach, and said, I don't think we need to change anything. There's no doubt in my mind that I have the right ideas here. I know what I'm doing. I'm the smartest guy ever. We don't need to change what we're doing. Our philosophy is fine. When he said that, I was aware that maybe he was just talking to talk. Sometimes Carroll does that. I mean, his press conference on Monday was just, oh my God. I don't know if you listened to any of it or not, but
I got through 75%. I had to shut it off. I was getting so annoyed.
Yeah, but when he started saying that, I was like, oh yeah, okay. I think I know where this is headed. And then we won these 2 games. So I don't know if these last 2 games did anything. They certainly didn't help, but I kind of feel like the decision was already made. That's my feeling.
I hope you're right on that. I hope that is the case. This was all more of because you should have come to more of what your decision was on the conclusion of the season, on the 15 games prior, rather than these last 2. And I would hope so in that respect. Well, that kind of does bring me to the next thing I want to talk about. I think it leads well into it, Brendon, which is that I do think we're at this point. We don't know what's necessarily still going to happen with Wilson. That shoe remains there, ready to drop. And let me really quickly, Brendon, just acknowledge, got a couple of donations here on the side here. Thank you, Charles Riley, for the $5 donation. Says, glad to finally catch you too. I hope you guys have nothing official on Pete coming back. I'm hoping for a late Friday news release saying Pete is outro. Well, thank you for lending right into what I was just going to talk about on that, Charles, because we don't have anything official unless you got anything in your are your little birds speaking? You got any whispers in the wind, Brendon? Any
Yeah, I'm waiting for the white smoke to come out of the top of the VMAC.
White black smoke, Carroll returns. White smoke, he's out. But I think neither of us in any of the little places that we might look to our dark corners for rumors or whatnot, are we hearing anything as far as change goes? It does look like unofficially, Brendon, though, Coach Carroll is coming back this next season. At this point, we've talked about, I know, this last couple of weeks, but I think we've got more of a certainty, like you just said a second ago. Now this is happening. How do you feel about this? What you hear this happening? Last two games have occurred. Season's got a couple days away. What do you think?
I mean, there's no way I can be happy about it because bottom line is, I feel like it is not realistic for this team to get back to where we wanted to get to if we have Pete Carroll as the head coach and GM. Now, I did hear a little bit of a rumor from somebody on ESPN that Pete might relinquish his GM powers, which I like. Hey, good. Hey, that's a step in the right direction for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But is it enough? I don't know. I will say that Pete, the GM, is probably worse than Pete, the coach. But Pete, the coach, is a problem too in some areas for sure. And it takes a lot to go right to win a Super Bowl. You need to do all these things right. The last thing you need is having a coach who gets out-coached on a weekly basis. And that's kind of what I feel like we have right now. And it's not just the fact that it looks like Pete is returning. That is one thing. But the way he's talking, it makes me feel like not only is he coming back, he's not going to really change anything. Like, a couple weeks ago, he had that quote where he said, we don't need to change our philosophy. There's no doubt in my mind that we have everything we need. We can be great. And by the way, like 2 months ago, he came out in a press conference and said, I'm trying everything I can think of and nothing's working. So which is it? Which is it? Like, those two statements don't go together very well. Okay.
No, they don't.
That doesn't make any sense. And he also had another comment recently that was factual, but I feel like he said it for a reason, and I don't like that reason. He was talking about our cap space this offseason, and he said, well, that cap space is going to go quickly. And that is true. Field Goals actually did a breakdown on this a few days ago where they went through a practice squad is going to take this much. The injury stuff is going to take this much. You need to carry this much money in for this. There's dead money here. The cap goes quickly. But I almost felt like Pete probably said that because he's trying to grease us up for another free agency period where you don't really do that much. I feel like he was saying that to say, hold on, guys, we're not making any free agency splashes this offseason either, so prepare.
So I agree that definitely he's not going to do the big contracts, and they're preparing us for that. 100% there, because they've not showed any aggressiveness in free agency for years now, even when they had $50 million to spend in 2019. I don't know, though, how we land at the spot of saying that the money's going to get eaten up quick. The money would get eaten up quick if you stacked up 6, 7 one-year deals like they did in 2019. But you're sitting on $53 million right now. You easily can cut another $10 million with likely cuts. Jason Meyer, LJ Collier, perhaps Chris Carson. There was one other one I had on there that would create you another $10 million there. So, I mean, $63 million at that point puts you somewhere in the neighborhood of the fourth or third most amount of money to spend in the entire NFL this offseason. You sit seventh right now. So I don't know. Really, to me, it's really less about the fact that the money is going to get eaten up quickly and more about the willingness of this general manager and coach, if he is still the one in charge of this stuff, to actually put in contracts that are legitimate. The Patriots didn't go out and spend $300 million last offseason on 1 and 2 year deals. They went out there and threw 3 and 4 year deals around, and $300 million was not the cap space that they crushed inside that 1 year of cap space they had last offseason. It's what they squished and squeezed. And like you're stuffing a suitcase, Brendon, packing it in deep. It's a matter of more will and want. And that's, to me, when I look at this roster, you've got only DK Metcalf is the only guy you're going to have to sign to a big deal. The first year cap hit that he's going to bring back on that, because he has 1 year deal left remaining of $1.6 million. So all you hit at that point is his bonus money. It's $11.5 million he costs you next offseason. So that's the part I don't get. You're going to restructure Bobby as well. That's atop that $10 million I was telling you about. To me, they're going to have money to spend. So I got to read this field goals article to understand where they came to on that conclusion.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It starts at about 52 million in cap space. And then it says the ERFAs and future contracts are going to cost about 16 million, which I don't know if that's the case or not. That sounds excessive to me. ERFAs are usually dirt cheap. So I'm going to check the numbers on this, but I mean, technically the statement is true. Some of that cap space is going to disappear. There are some players that we have outgoing who I do want to bring back. Some of them are not going to cost that much, but there are other ways to create cap space too. Not to mention you can still restructure Wilson, which, as far as I'm concerned, if you are really going to bring him back, there is no reason not to restructure him. If you're going to sell him all the way. Don't sell him halfway by like saving this money in 2023 when I don't know. It's just really,
at least
feels like the plan isn't great.
At least convert base to bonus is what you're saying, kind of the bare minimum. If you're not going to sign him to a new deal, at least do that, which would then free up a ton of space. And it's a minimal hit down the line once you do whatever you're going to do with Wilson on the next thing a year from now.
Right. But it's hard for me to believe that you couldn't find a way to create big cap space if you really wanted to. Yeah. Like if the price for building a great offensive line is getting rid of Bobby Wagner, then I would hope that Pete Carroll's willing to pay that price. But the way he's talking, it almost sounds like he wouldn't be willing to make that trade because Bobby is his guy. He loves Bobby. Yeah. And to him, the conversation kind of ends there. I made a comparison in a video a few days ago where I talked about how Adam Sandler makes his movies these days. And I know this sounds weird, but I promise I'm going somewhere with this.
I know where you're going with it. You go.
Okay. Yeah. Adam Sandler he doesn't decide to make a movie. He decides he wants to go on vacation. And then he's like, wait a minute, I can get paid $15 million to go on vacation if I just get a movie studio to come bring the cameras out, chase me around. We'll get some writers to write this really stupid script, really stupid screenplay. I'll cast my friends to be in it and pay them $12 million a piece to do nothing except read stupid one-liners and pretend to get kicked in the crotch. I'm going to cast like Penelope Cruz to play my wife, so I have an excuse to be creepy with her. And and we're going to cram it with product placement. And the movie's going to be terrible. Everybody knows the movie's going to be terrible, but Adam Sandler doesn't care because he gets to be with his friends. He gets to have fun. He gets to make an easy $15 million. But I was kind of comparing that to how you build an NFL team, because the NFL team, it matters if that product is good or not. You're not building an NFL team so you can be surrounded by your guys. You're not building an NFL team so you can have fun. You're trying to build something that actually wins games. The purpose of an NFL team is to win games. And I was thinking about this offseason coming up. You have already had Carroll talk about he wants to bring back Wagner, wants to bring back Carson. I mean, we kind of already know that Chris Carson was brought back because Carroll felt bad for him because nobody else was going to give him any money. He kind of almost admitted that. Mm-hmm. Like, isn't that what Adam Sandler would do when he's making his movies? He would say, hey, Rob Schneider, nobody else is casting you. I'll give you $6 million to show up in my movie for 20 minutes.
Yes.
Because it doesn't matter, because the studio gives him the money to do it and the studio makes their money back. But with a football team, it really matters. Mm-hmm. So I was just drawing that comparison to kind of talk about how messed up this is.
Well, and to add to your comparison, yes, the studio makes money. Yes, Sandler gets to go on his vacation. Is that a good movie? Is that a good movie watching experience for you when I put that on at home? I might have a few chuckles, but is that a good film I've then watched? Is that a good spending hour and a half of my time on the modern day Adam Sandler movies at this point? And that's the part that I arrive at. So let's relate that to our Seahawks. So they do all that stuff that's the equivalent. So that's going to give us a good team on the football field, or the thing that, i.e., most matters in the whole process, right?
Yeah, the Adam Sandler movie doesn't need to be good. Nobody wants it to be good. It doesn't need to be. The only thing it has to do is exist, because it's a vehicle for Adam Sandler to go on vacation with his friends. And there are enough people who are going to pay to see an Adam Sandler movie to justify its cost of production, and they cram it with product placement. So it's cool.
Yeah.
It matters if this team is good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the contrast I'm drawing.
Yeah, and a little bit of paying for past performance versus what you're going to get in the future, which if you're going to keep Bobby here at 13 million next year, 12 million, that's exactly what you're doing. And it's a gross overpay in a place where you could be saving money and applying it in other places. But I agree with you. I think that they are going to bring him back, and I think at the end of the day they're going to restructure him, which is going to be the detriment. I'm with you. My confidence has been kind of shaken in this situation. I land a little bit. It's basically, I think, the same point you're making, just in a slightly different way, which is just this coaching staff and front office within their dynamic right now have made a multitude of mistakes, Brendon, for the last 5 years. We've spoken about this. You've got to chop this regime up into 2 5-year slices. The first 5 years, the second 5 years. There's a difference, I think, in the way that they've done, the difference in their success rate, both in the draft and their signings and free agency and how they've operated. And I think in this last 5 years, 6 years now it is, Brendon, really, there's these mistakes that keep getting made and keep getting repeated. And I think they'll get made on into the future. And I think they'll get repeat on in the future, which just kind of really makes it hard for me to have a lot of confidence. I'm encouraged by what I saw at the end of the year. But I think they'll end up putting a lot of that money that they've got set aside into their own guys here again. I think they'll put them back into these 1 and 2 year deals, which will eat up all, to Carroll's point, which will then eat up all that cap space that we have available this offseason. Even if we create a load of it, they'll just put all those 1 and 2 year deals because they've got some weird thing right now. I don't know if Jody Allen said no 4-year deals because I want to keep it low for future selling of the team. I don't know what the reasoning would be behind it, Brendon, but they've been married to these process of not putting out these contracts that are very, very far out. And you need to do it. If you want to bring in the right free agents and the good free agents, they're not going to come in on 1-year deals. Football careers are short. Guys don't want to sign 1-year deals. So you're going to pick through the secondhand stuff, the bargain basement shopping once again. And that's my problem with this, is that I would love to believe that Carroll's going to change some things, but you've referenced a couple times today already, press conferences in just the last month where he's done nothing but over and over basically state we're sticking to what we are. We're going to trust this process, our philosophy, our foundation, bop, 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 bop. There's no hints we're being given, Brendon, and we're watching with the magnifying glass to see some kind of hint that there's going to be any kind of change whatsoever to philosophy, to, hey, this is broken, we're going to fix this. But there's nothing. We've got nothing to build that off.
Yeah, the silver lining is that if you actually do run it back in 2022 and this team is bad again, if we have another bad season, this fan base is not going to deal with it. They've already kind of shown they're not going to deal with it. They spent 3.5 hours booing the team at home against the Cardinals. You saw a ton of empty seats for the last few home games. Like, this fan base has already shown they will drop the team like that if they feel like the product is not worth their time. So I guess the silver lining would be it's going to be really hard for Carroll to survive another bad year. He will be run out of town at that point, I believe. But maybe he can survive one, but I don't think he can survive another with this fan base.
Well, you imagine how bitter it's going to become and the vitriol towards Carroll if it does get out to another season like this one again next year. And even those people that have been ardent supporters now just completely, that's where it's like, dude, do you get to a place of harming your legacy by holding on for a little too long? Maybe, maybe not. But I would say that this is the road to arriving at that stage of things, and I hope it doesn't. I hope he can find a way. One thing is nice, Brendon, on this, on a positive front of this, is at the very least, as you said here, with them running it back now, it will be we're not in a rebuild. We're not in a retool. We're more in a reload at this point. They're not going to come into this offseason. I mean, whether they spend that money correctly or not, which I have my hesitancies on, they will spend it. I don't think that we're going to be sitting on $13 million of cap space again after this offseason. Do you? I think it's going to be all.
I would hope not, but with the way things are going right now, I don't know why we kept that 13 million in the first place. Because I thought maybe they were doing it to kind of make it a little more palatable to trade Wilson, but I'm not getting the indication that's the direction we're going.
Mm-hmm.
And don't get me wrong, if we're going to keep Carroll, I think that's okay. I don't really want to trade Wilson if we're going to keep Carroll because I don't totally trust him to use the draft picks right. Mm-hmm. I don't trust him to not just get irritated after a year and retire in the middle of a rebuild after getting those picks, which would be a disaster because then you've truly wasted those assets. I don't want to ask Carroll to put together a 10-year team with all these draft assets when you know he's not going to be coaching another 10 years. His body won't allow it, almost certainly. So I'm fine with keeping Wilson if you're going to keep Carroll. Don't get me wrong, but I kind of felt like that was the point of holding on to that 13 million, and I guess it maybe wasn't.
Explain to me the philosophy of last offseason with the void year contracts and the holding on to the cap space. And like, just tell me what it is that the plan was in place. It's still not clear to me either. It's clear as mud. I don't get what they're trying to do. It's frustrating as hell. Well, when you look back at this last season, before we kind of get into more of a positional breakdown on this in kind of big, just general terms, and it can be just kind of, doesn't have to be real specific items, but what for you, just to stay in the positive, because we touch on a lot of negative here, but what are some things that went right this year with this team? Stuff we can take from this year, move it forward into next year.
Well, one thing I'll say, given the fact that we are running it back, here's a little bit of an attempted encouragement. That 2020 draft class actually looks legit. It's the first legit draft class we've had since 2012, I think. You've got 3 long-term starters with Brooks and Taylor and hopefully Damian Lewis. I still think he can be a good starter. Even playing out of position this year, I don't think he was terrible. He was just replacement level-ish. You've got the quality depth. I still think Alton Robinson belongs on an NFL roster. Freddie Swain is the master of catching touchdowns when no defender's within 25 yards of him.
It's a skill.
Yeah, DJ Dallas is at least a good special teamer. Colby Parkinson, he's actually a better blocker than I thought. I'll say that. I didn't think he would be able to block at all. I thought he was going to be a Jimmy Graham there, but yeah, can actually block a little bit. So that's a real draft class now. 2 years in, that looks like a draft class that actually helps your team get lifted up, which is the first time I can say that about a draft class since 2012. Every other draft class since then has been either takes the team down or leaves them where they are. So to me, that is the thing that is going well right now. I guess you could say the run defense ended up being one of the best in the league. Not that run defense matters as much as it used to in the NFL. That was good. As much as I just spent the last 10 minutes bashing Pete Carroll, I will say that his cornerback assembly line really worked this year because we kept throwing different cornerbacks out there. DJ Reed missed time. Sidney Jones missed time. John Reed got hurt. Bless you on Austin got COVID. Kept putting people out there and they kept holding their own. So we did see a return to form for that cornerback assembly line. So those are the things to me that really went right.
Yeah, I think those are some great things. I might add on to it. Let's add a couple guys that are pending free agents. We hope that are brought back that have gone right this year. DJ Reed, Sidney Jones, Rashad Penny. I think all three guys, we'd agree. Obviously, it depends on the price with all of them, but that'd be great to bring them back. I think their performance is really good. We'll be looking at the position breakdown in a second, but I thought overall the run blocking got better as the year went along. That would be something I'd point to. I thought our receivers played to form. People picked at DK a little bit. Tyler had his best year. I don't think anybody's picking at him. I thought those guys were good. They were durable. They were on the field. They were productive. There's some problems on this team, but I don't think that you could really point to the wide receiver crew and say that that's that was it. They all held it down. Freddie Swain, even Penny Hart even got a couple times some tries. He did all right with it. Eskridge was a little bit but the receiving core was okay across the board, I thought, and did all right for the team. But that was kind of about it. It was more bad. On the bad side, and not to harp on the bad side, Brendon, but on bad side of things in general with this team, what are things that you see that went bad this year that you have to fix going forward on that other side?
Well, to me, the main failure was the defensive line because that was an area you addressed heavily in the offseason. And I'm actually looking at the chart right in front of me right now. We ended up averaging less than 10 pressures a game this year. I think we got better pressure last year, which is crazy because we were supposed to be better this year. We brought in guys like Kerry Hyder. We had Darrell Taylor in his rookie year, and Darrell Taylor actually played really well. Rasheem Green did play better this year than he did the previous year, or at least he played more. I don't know how much better he was, but he played a lot more.
Yeah.
And yet, game after game after game, you have, I look up the pressure numbers, and I'm seeing like 5 pressures for the whole game, 6 pressures for the whole game. And it's no wonder that the defense breaks down at the end of games, because when the other team needs to be able to pick up third down, they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is the number one thing that really went wrong. I'm not going to say too much bad about the offense other than the fact that the running back room broke down, but injuries, I mean, that's going to happen. It's a violent sport. I understand that, but we did kind of build a running back room full of guys that we knew might get hurt, and they sure did. So that was not great. Obviously, Jason Myers might have been the most disappointing Seahawk this year. He regressed pretty heavily, but kicking in this league is random. So I would mostly say that pass rush. That pass rush really disappointed me. That was the main thing.
What did you think about the pass blocking this year? Is it on point with last year? Was it a little bit improved?
I think it probably took a little bit of a step back, but the thing with the pass blocking for me is that it was way up sometimes and way down sometimes. Like that Washington game, they were awful.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how bad they were until I rewatched that game. At first, I thought it was, this is okay. And then I rewatched it and it's like, oh, Kyle Fuller, man. I don't think he hit a single pass block that whole game. And then you had games where they were doing a great job, like mostly against the really bad teams. But I think they did pretty well against the Niners after they got Kyle Fuller out of the game. I think that they did a good job against the Colts week 1 for the most part. So it was just up and down. There wasn't anything consistent. So
yeah,
that I'm kind of like, I mean, Dwayne Brown took a step back, which can't be helped really. Although I want to ask you, Brandon, how you feel about this. So the Dwayne Brown thing, like, I supported the decision to bring him back this year, but clearly his age caught up to him at least somewhat, and that was part of the reason why he fell back. Are you putting that on Carroll for not seeing that coming and getting rid of him a year too early instead of a year too late? Or are you just going to say that's just the breaks?
No, I don't. I'm not. That's not one place that I would hit Carroll for. I think you would write out the last year of that deal. Up until this season, he had still performed at even, let's just be conservative, a top 6 left tackle level last season.
Mm-hmm.
And he's coming into the final year of his deal. So if you do move off from him, there is going to be some bonus money that you swallow into this season to do so. And oh, by the way, you still need to go find a left tackle. And do you have the resources to do that last offseason? Is there a guy there to go find to get that done? Fisher, maybe, would have been the guy that they would have looked at. I mean, but I don't know if I would have advocated for that position versus trying to address other parts of this team, right? Dwayne Brown wasn't a problem. So I'm not going to, this is kind of a common thing I say a lot. You know, why go after one of the things that works with this team? DK Metcalf, for instance, I have a very good share of my subs that want to trade DK Metcalf and can't pay a receiver and blah, 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 blah. And I go, why trade one of the things that's working really well on this team? Why there's so many things broken here. Why are we concentrating on this kind of deal? So I support Carroll on that. Dwayne Brown, look, he wasn't at his best last year, but he was still top 6 level in my opinion. He didn't show this fall off a cliff like we saw this year. And the dead money part is the part people have to factor in, because now you're eating money to push him away, and then you got to go sign somebody else and put money on the books to bring him in, right? We weren't going to draft what great left tackle were we going to get in the second round around the Eskridge pick? They were gone. They were.
I had a bit of a man crush on Samuel Cosme, but I think he went like 2 picks before our pick.
Yeah,
so.
He was gone. Hunter, I did too. I watched a lot of Sam. He was great, but he was taken off before we had a chance to select in the draft. So you weren't going to get in the draft. You would have had to go make a trade or free agency. There weren't left tackles in free agency. So it's always that part of the equation where it's not just, well, moving Dwayne Brown. It's also, okay, what about the dead money? And then who's the guy you're bringing in to replace this year to perform at a better level than what we got out of Dwayne Brown this year? Because Dwayne Brown didn't play great this year, okay? Make no mistakes. He was bad through the first half of the year, but he rounded out into shape in the back half of the season, and he probably finished out somewhere around league average as far as his left tackle play this year. Is that good enough moving forward? No, we'd like to get better than that, but that's still, again, what player you're going to do is going to get better than league average with the cost that has to be incurred. I like just, you're out the contract now. It's free and clear. He goes and signs somewhere, and you make a trade for a left tackle, that's potentially compensatory value back to you. I think they'll probably end up signing a Teron Armstead type, or there's some other left tackles, but I think the point still stands. That's one of the places I support them on. How about you?
I think that's fair. I think that's reasonable. Like, my thing is that I feel like Bill Belichick would have moved on from a Dwayne Brown. He would have seen it
Mhm.
coming. He would have
Yeah.
been like, yeah, 37 years old, bad knee, get out. And Carroll, he's just not on that level. But I guess who's on Bill Belichick's level? So
Yeah. Well, and he operates, you were talking about this a few minutes ago. Bill Belichick is the ultimate guy that operates kind of like, I think, just in this case, not in his cheating and not in his grumpy mood, but in the way that he approaches his roster construction. To your point on that, getting a year out early on guys and having almost this sort of just straight look. I'm all about ball. I'm all about making my roster as good as they can be. No sentimental approaches here. Know what you've done for me on the past. I mean, he literally wins his first Super Bowl and moves on from Lawyer Malloy the very next year after that Super Bowl win, which Lawyer Malloy was like the leader of that defense on that side to help them get there. And it's just, he operates with that where it's what's going to make me the best. He's not looking with no emotion. It's as a guy likes to try to think of him that we're as intellectual as we can be on this. He absolutely is operating from just that intellectual mindset at that point. And it's with no heart and and maybe you've got to balance a little bit. The argument could be made. You can't just be that, but hey, it's worked for him. He's back in the playoffs this year with a rookie quarterback. So it's yet to go wrong for Belichick operating that way. I will say the one thing is that Belichick, when he does bail off a guy a year early, built within that usually is that he is able to flip that asset to somebody else and get them to vastly overpay for that asset because he does so. So if you moved Dwayne Brown at the start of this year, what were you getting for Dwayne Brown on the open market as far as a trade goes? Maybe a fifth, maybe.
I mean, the thing is, you're freeing up 11 million in cap space that you could use to go get a better left tackle if you can find one. And I'm
Right.
not saying we could have been able to, but
No, it's 11 million. You could have fit it in. You could have fit Fisher's contract in, for instance. Fisher, who got signed
Mhm,
with the Colts and I think played very good for them at left tackle this year. You
mhm.
could have signed that for that. You can fit it in because it's the 11 million, but then it's also, well, that's just, you just got to fit the first year of the cap hit in that 11 million. You don't actually, have that factor out all over the course of the contract. So it's feasible. You could have gone that path with it. It is.
Yeah, like that's kind of the internal battle I have with Carroll sometimes. Like Dunlap's another good one. Dunlap didn't really do that much this year until the season was over. Do I blame Carroll for not seeing that coming, or do I just kind of have to throw my hands up and go, "Hey, I would have been fooled by it too, whatever."
Yeah. And I think there are those situations where it's, that's because, and this is the place where people will call us, oh, you hate Carroll. Not, there's places I'll give them credit where credit is due. And there's places that you give them criticism where criticism due. I think there's things they've done that there's a smart approach to it. And then there's places they've done where it's just that there's been more places as of recent that have been not the smartest approach versus what we like to see, which is that applied everywhere. I think to your point on this and what you're kind of touching around the edges of this, that is the real, I mean, this is the point here is sentimentality and we're going to bring my guys back. And I guess just have my guys here. It's hard to win football games in the NFL. And it's hard if you're going to bring that stuff into bear in your roster construction, isn't it? I mean,
Hmm.
it does kind of put you behind an eight ball on top of the fact you're already not a schematic tactician here as it is.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing that kind of really depresses me as we go into this off season. It's not just the fact that we're bringing the crew back. We're bringing them back and they're not showing they don't seem to believe that there's anything to consider maybe they got something wrong here. You would think a bad season would make somebody go, "Well, maybe I'm not looking at this the right way. Maybe I got to reconsider the way I do things." But I'm not seeing that. I mean, at this point, forget Carroll. I don't think we're going to get rid of Norton. I don't think we're going to get rid of most anything. The most that I've seen is Clint Hurts might go because he's going to get hired by Miami, and we're not firing him. He's just getting a promotion in college.
Yeah.
And I mean, are we even going to fire Ivan the Terrible? I'm not seeing any
Ugh.
indication of that so far. So I it's just like they just it's arrogance to have a season like this and come out and say, "No, it's not me. It's not me. I didn't do anything wrong here. It's not me. It's not my fault. Everything that I'm doing is correct."
Mhm.
It's arrogance. And then on top of all that, you have the I mean, I don't know if you could call it questionable mental faculties, but did you hear what Carroll was saying about Daryl Taylor in his post game in the presser on Monday?
No. What did he?
It was so weird. He started talking about Daryl Taylor. He said something like, Daryl Taylor reminded me that you've got to give a guy a second chance or something like that. He reminded me you've always got to be willing to give guys second chances. And I'm like, you didn't give Daryl Taylor a second chance. You gave him a first chance.
What
And
did
I spent that press conference thinking, did he mean to say Robert Nkemdiche? because that would make sense. So it's just like, did he say the wrong name? Like, it was just like, oh boy.
That's where it's just between the stuff you've heard, like you're with me, you've heard these press conferences for years with Carroll, so you start to hear the same sentences spoke by him, and you just go, your eyes glaze over and you sort of start to tune out. And you're like, oh, he's heading into automated mode right now. You know, he's just pulling out that thing in his mind where he's like, oh, this question was asked, apply this. And he's not going to give us anything. So most time you're getting nothing from him on anything. And then, I don't know what to make of that either. But that's a strange comment.
Yeah, you didn't give Daryl Taylor a second chance. Were you going to cut him after a rookie year where he broke his foot? Like,
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't get it. It was very confusing to me. But you know what? We got to find some way to make this work with Carroll because it looks like he's still going to be here. So we can sit here for the next 3 months and complain about the fact that Carroll's here, or we can try to figure out some way to make it work with him. And at this, if we're going to keep him, then we may as well do the latter. So I'm willing to move forward with that.
I agree with you, man. We got to make our peace with it. I've had fans. I'm going to revolt now. Like, we're never revolting here. It is what it is. We'll ride without. You just said, this ain't going more than another season at the most. If it goes bad, and there's a chance that it could still go like it's not impossible. This thing doesn't turn on. It takes a lot of things going right in the right direction this offseason, but that does not mean it can't turn in the good direction of that. And speaking of turn, let's turn this forward a little bit towards a little bit of a positional look back here at this season. We're going to go position by position here, Brendon, and we're going to just kind of get an understanding. Are we good here? Need kind of, in basic terms. We'll have future shows down where we'll get more specific on, if we replace this, here's what I want to put there. But more of where's our confidence in these individual position groups, whether we need to really address this hard. We'll kind of go blow by blow through each of this. And we'll start out with the most important position on the football field. And we're going to operate, Brendon, with this exercise for now, because we're going to need some information to think at this point Wilson will be moved. I'm going to operate from now like he remains. So let's operate with that in that mindset. Where are you at, starter, backup, especially on the heels of our backup playing it loose and free out on the freeways and highways of the Western Washington, rolling 96 miles an hour, drunk as F, Brendon? What are we thinking here as far as the quarterback position? I'm guessing you're okay with Wilson, but what about the backup?
Well, overall, I put quarterback on my list. I'm looking at my list right here as a low need going into this offseason as of right now. When you're paying Russell Wilson the kind of money that you're paying him, you can't invest that much into a backup, I don't think. But you're going to need somebody, and it looks like we're going to need somebody because I know some people like Jacob Eason. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. I don't know where it comes from. The dude has talent, but I don't think he really likes football that much. That was, to me, the thing with him at UW. I remember that's what people kept saying about him. He didn't really like football. He just had physical gifts, and he decided, I can make a little bit of money this way. But I don't believe that Jacob Eason will ever be anything in the NFL. So I would put that as a low need going into this offseason. And I'm relatively indifferent to how you address it. But I would love to get somebody with a little more upside than a Geno Smith. Like, I'm looking at what the Eagles did with Gardner Minshew, where they traded a 6th-round pick and got a live-armed backup with some upside. If we could do that, I think that would be cool. It'd be way more fun than having a guy like a Geno Smith who you already know what he is.
Are you open to the thought process? I'm not myself on this, so I'll preempt it. We've got about 12 quarterbacks. I'd reckon there's probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood about 12, 13 quarterbacks from round 2 to round 4 that'll be selected in this draft, Brendon. Are you picking in that range? Or is that too high to pick up a backup with the team needs that we have?
I can't go for that. I cannot go for that. To me, if you're going to keep Wilson and Pete, you gotta, every move you make has to be about 2022. You can't be making moves thinking, let's keep this guy on ice until 2024. Let's stash him away. No, you can't do that. So I'd be looking at quarterbacks maybe late in day 3, UDFA. If you want to bring in a free agent veteran, like I've always kind of liked a Brent Hundley. I think he was here for a year, actually.
Yeah.
Always kind of liked Brent Hundley. But you got to keep it low.
Okay. Well, I agree with you on that too. By the way, I'm same place with the quarterback. You're all in this season. You can't be bopping along, and I'm okay later on, or even getting maybe a read option guy, Brendon. Getting that guy that can just come in and run a real simplified offense. Because it's not a good chance anyway. If it's going to be significant games, you're going to a Super Bowl as it is if Wilson's out. But if it's just a couple games like we had this year, and a guy that can run read option, maybe he gets you one extra game versus Geno because he's hard to deal with and you don't have to do a whole lot. You just play it that way. Real quick here, I got another dono here from Charles Riley. He's actually giving you a compliment on this one, Brendon. He said, Brendon had an awesome breakdown of Hawks draft and trades on his channel today. Well, please do, folks. Thank you for your double donations on that, Charles. And please go check out Brendon's Hawks draft. I got to check that one out, Brendon. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I made a 24-minute video this morning going over the reasons why Carroll should be terminated. Basically, just one final video where I get it all out, and then after we probably don't do it, then I can just move on from it. But a lot of bad drafts.
One last Hail Mary, one last Doug Flutie fading away at the 50-yard line, Boston College 84. It's just
maybe Jody will see the video. Maybe Jody will see the video.
You never know. Well, do go check out that video on Brendon's channel. And sorry, Brendon, got one more here from Charles. Thank you again. Charles says, what movies are better than Sandler and Pauly Shore movies? I dare either of you two to say Pauly Shore. What movies are better between Sandler and Shore? Oh,
I mean, I don't know if I've seen very many Pauly Shore movies. I'm trying to think here. Have I seen any? God,
you got the one sure Brendon. You probably saw the Brendan Fraser caveman one where they defrost Brendan Fraser and he's a caveman.
George of the Jungle?
No. He's like a caveman, and it's I forget the name of it, but Biodome is the one I saw. That's where they get in this biodome for years as stoner types. Him.
I did like Uncut Gems. Uncut Gems was a good movie, but that was very different. That's not really an Adam Sandler movie. The Adam Sandler movie is very different from that. Never really been a fan of his type of comedy, to be perfectly honest.
I like some of the early stuff a little bit, but boy, is it a little sometimes obnoxious. But I probably lean to Sandler over Shore because Shore's super obnoxious. Hey, buddy. That's that. You remember Pauly Shore? That was that guy.
Okay.
Snoochie Boochie, man.
I think I do, but I'm just not sure I've ever seen one of Pauly Shore's movies.
You probably tried to blank it out if you did. Well, sorry. Thank you again, Charles, for all your donations. Big Mac coming in as well. So who are we going to pick up for our second round pick? I think it's going to be a running back. Hard to predict right now, I think, isn't it right now, Brendon?
It's too early. It's too early. We got to see what we do in free agency.
I would be surprised to see Seattle taking a running back that high again. Even though Penny is in it out well at this point, I think that they're going to take a little bit of a lesson because they haven't in the past drafted that high at the running back position outside, I guess, of Christian. Actually they have. I got to take that back, Brendon. They took Christian Michael, I think, in the second round. Yes, so they have shown a willingness. They have shown a willingness to go high in the past. Big Mac. It's a possibility. I think, like Brendon said, before you get free agency, to predict the draft, because free agency comes before of it, it makes it impossible to predict. All right, we would just be pulling names out of the hat right now. We wouldn't be giving you anything with any kind of, like intricate knowledge on it. But thank you, Big Mac, Charles Riley, for all the donos on the channel, man. I appreciate you guys. And again, do check out that. I'm gonna see that video, Brendon. I want to watch you one more last the Hail Mary. I should have done that too. We just had all hands on decks and done all of our own little videos to try to get one last push. Come on, Jody. Think of your brother. All right, well, let's go running backs next. This is going to be an interesting one, Brendon. We've got a free agent in Penny, free agent in Collins. I believe they'll put a restricted tag potentially on Travis Homer. Potentially, that's one of those guys. I know he's played really well, and everybody loves him on special teams. But that is one spot, Brendon. You go, well, we'll get into that. So we got Carson due to come back next year. You can save $3.5 million from moving off from him. What is our state right now in our running back room?
Well, I currently have running back as one of our highest needs, but it's relative to the position. I don't think you need to go spend $50 million on a running back. I don't think you need to spend top draft capital on a running back. You can get running backs, but I truly don't believe, and I don't care what Carroll said. I know Carroll said that he thinks he's coming back. I don't think Carson's ever going to play football again, and if he does, that's probably a bad idea. And we have to move forward. I do think we're going to bring Penny back, but we have to move forward knowing that we cannot trust that guy to be there from week to week. I'm sorry, but a contract push after 4 years of being mostly unavailable is not going to convince me of anything. And it shouldn't convince anybody of anything. Like, this is the ultimate that's the ultimate contract push. It's like when Jacoby Ellsbury played through a bunch of injuries on the last year of his contract year for the Red Sox to get paid. And everybody who knew anything knew that guy's hurt like he always is, but he's gutting it out. because he wants to get paid. So whatever you do with the running back position, it needs to be with the knowledge that Rashad Penny is not dependable. He may be there, but you got to assume that he won't be there. So I want to hit running back pretty hard. I want to, that Cerebrus thing you were talking about a while ago, the three-headed dog.
Yeah.
I like that. I definitely want to cover all my bases there. You've got, I think Travis Homer's still under contract with the team. I think he's got 1 year left on his rookie deal. I could be wrong.
We've got 2019, 2020, 2021. So that's 3 years on the back end guys. And then they get to the fourth year and then it's a tendered. They're tendered at that point. So he's under contract, but then when you get tendered, you move off that low end salary you're making as a 6th, 7th rounder. And you go from a couple $100,000 to getting now up over $1 million, which is probably part of the stuff that Field Goals is doing in their tabulation to the 16 million. The problem is that you're not pulling all of those guys. Not all of those guys. Some of them you non-tender probably a very good deal of them. He might be one of the guys, but the interesting part on that, Brendon, is that you drafted Dallas. You drafted DJ Dallas in the 4th round. Not 2 years ago, as to be basically a third down specialist. I mean, that's what you had in mind with him when picking him. Now, Homer's outplayed him, especially in pass protection. But we get down to the roster building part of this, Brendon. 1.5, 1.7 for Travis Homer, or $200,000 to just roll with DJ Dallas. Is Homer that much of a difference maker as far as special teams that you're going to pay that much more?
Well, my hang up is that it doesn't seem like DJ Dallas can block the way Homer does. And I'll spend that extra $1 million if it means I don't get my quarterback killed.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough point. It definitely is. All right, well, then you're running back. You got DJ Dallas. You got Homer coming back. You hopefully bring Penny back. What's your price on Penny? Where are you going cost-wise with him now?
Oh, boy. I can't go that high. I'm sorry. If the Falcons or somebody want to give him $10 million, then I say go with God, Rashad Penny. Good luck. But it's not going to be me. I'm not going to let it be me. So if it's a 1 year deal, I would go up to at this point, I guess I would go 4 million, maybe 4.5. If it's 2 years, then probably something around that ballpark. I just can't go any further than that. I gotta draw a line in the sand somewhere.
I'm the same place on it. I'm not looking to go past that mark. I think 4 million is what I said on a 1 year deal. And I'd maybe do a 2 year 10 because you can kind of structure it. You could do a 3rd year as a void deal and kind of bear it out a little bit like you did with Carson a bit. But you could, I'd be okay going even far, but I can't go further than that. Even the 10, it hurts a little bit even to go talk of 10. One guy I want to talk to you about, I think I know your answer on this, but just it's been reported that he might be on the market. If you trade for him, though he is costing a lot of money to the team he's on right now, of course, all the bonus money would eke out. You would only be on the hook for him. Let's say if Penny went. Okay, so like Penny goes in free agency and you're looking for another option, which is Christian McCaffrey, a West Coast kid, played his ball at Stanford. Maybe would be interested in getting back off the East Coast. I don't know much if he's got anything left. The Panthers really used him up over the first couple of years of his career. But what do you think on him?
Maybe I would get him to do my taxes, but I don't think I would get him to play on my football team. He's probably pretty good at that stuff too. He went to Stanford. He probably knows all those mathematics.
You got to be smart.
But I'm not too crazy about that one. I mean, obviously there's a price, right? If there's a price that he would be willing to play for where I would go, okay, sure, why not? But I'm not sure I'm feeling that one. I think he's just made of glass at this point, and
yeah,
I don't see it.
I just think they put like 300 carries on his body and then 100 receptions, I think, through the first like 2-3 years of his career. It's too much. It's just way too much to put on a cat. Randall McDaniel coming in with a $5 donation. It says, has the meeting happened with Jody and Peter? So I understand it. It's happened.
I think that it's happened. I know we haven't heard anything from it yet, but I feel like if something happened, we would have heard it. Now, I'll say this. As we saw this last few days with the New York Giants, those meetings can change perceptions. Like, I think that John Mara was planning on keeping Joe Judge. Then he had his end-of-year meeting with Joe, and something changed. And then the next day he was like, you know what? You're fired. Out of here. Get out of here. So for all we know, tomorrow, Jody's going to make the move. But if we haven't heard anything yet, my sense is there's nothing to hear.
Yes, I agree with you, and I definitely have had the meeting. I think that third down call too. I don't know if you saw that over the Giants game. It's getting
Yeah.
us a lot of run. I think that just did him in. Like that was a nail in the coffin right there. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, a month ago, Mara was talking about Joe Judge. He was like, "No, I think this guy's the next Bill Belichick. This guy's like my baby bit Bill." Is what he said.
yeah.
And a month later, he's like, "No, I can't sell this to my fan base. Beat it."
Yeah, it's the edge I'm getting those guys, those tough, the bristly guys that are gonna wear people out a little bit. Sometimes they'll get people locked in, and sometimes they just bear, everybody gets worn out and they're done with it. And it's
Mm,
with Bill, at least he has a little bit of that built up. Hey, look at my rings. You want to know why you need to listen to me? Look at these. Look at these.
exactly.
So, and it's not a bad point. It always wins. That's always going to win the argument. Whenever you have a five rings on your fingers, and you go, just look at this. You got to just basically shut up if you're on the other side of that, right?
Pretty much.
I'd be using it all the time if I had them.
Hmm.
But thank you, Randall, for the $5 donation. You're awesome, and yeah, I think it's like Brendon said, we may still have a little bit of hope here that maybe she sleeps on it tonight, and she gets up and she's just like, I'm done with this. I don't care. I don't care. I don't think so, but I hope we can remain hopeful. All right, let's get to receiver. Maybe one of the groups we feel a little bit, probably the best about. Maybe I dare say, Brendon, of any positional group on this team, that might be the one we feel the best at where we stand.
Yeah, there's no way you can make any offseason investment into the wide receiver position, I don't think, unless you trade Metcalf, which if we bring back Pete and bring back Russ, there's just no way. Like, why
Mhm.
would you trade Metcalf at that point? It makes a little bit of sense if you're going to move off these guys. Makes no
Mhm.
sense if you're going to keep them. But yeah, you've got Lockett locked into a big contract for at least a couple more years. Eskridge is locked into his rookie deal. I'm not a Freddie Swain fan, but he's grinding out there. I can't completely hate the dude. The dude finds a way to get open by 25 yards like once a month.
Must be doing something right.
Yeah. Even and honestly, we have some guys at the bottom of our depth chart that I would like if the need ever arose. Like I still kind of have a thing for Aaron Fuller. I still think
Mhm.
Aaron Fuller has some Doug Baldwin like traits. I like Cade Johnson too.
I'm a big Cade
Uh,
Johnson guy.
Yeah, so yeah, I think this is a no need. I think this is a pretty slam dunk. Don't worry about it. Um, Save your money.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you pretty much do save your money. Are you signing DK to a contract extension?
I think I would. I think I would. Yeah, he didn't have his best year, but there were obvious reasons why.
Mhm.
And he's clearly a super talented guy. And honestly, I know it wasn't perfect, but I don't think he had given all the things that went wrong this year. I don't think he had the monster meltdown that some people would have expected him to have when things started going
Mhm.
bad. It wasn't perfect, but I think he kind of held it together better than a lot of people I think would have assumed.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm a big sign DK back guy. I think you gotta do that. That's the one move you can make this offseason. Um, all right, let's go to tight end. This is a position with a lot of question marks. Everett's due to be a free agent. Will Disley's due to be a free agent. Parkinson showed some flashes for you, both catching and blocking. I agree with you. He's impressed me considerably in his blocking. He did not show that on his Stanford tape.
Hmm.
Um, Still haven't been able to find a way to really work him in the high point game, which he did show on his Stanford tape. But he's something we can utilize going forward as even just a traditional tight end. He did a lot of that this year, and he showed he was able to do it, not just be an H back move guy. Where's your direction lead on tight end, both with the free agents we have pending, and by the way, open market as well, Brendon, because you've got David Njoku, OJ Howard. There's a collection of free agent tight ends that are out there this offseason.
Yeah. Well, as of right now, tight end kind of has to be a high need because we literally don't have anything except for Colby.
Hmm.
And do we even have Mabry? Is Mabry still under contract? And if he is, does it even matter? I
Yeah.
don't know. But yeah, it's a high need right now. I would say I would like to kind of run it back at that position. I
Okay.
think that Gerald Everett, I know it wasn't always great. He had a couple of really bad games, including this most recent one. He was kind of bad, but I like him. I like his talent. I think that another year in this offense, another year with Wilson. I mean, I'm still thinking back to that Washington game where Everett was getting open every other play, and Wilson's finger was just, he was missing him by 10 yards.
Yeah.
If he hit some of those throws, he probably is a 500-yard guy. That's a career year for him. He's not Travis Kelce, but I think he's good, and I think you could probably get him back for about $6 million a year. I
Mhm.
would definitely do that. And I don't know if Disley's probably a veteran minimum player, so why not? He's a good blocker. He's good to have around. Decent pass catcher. Like, what's wrong with that? So I would run it back at tight end personally. I like
Okay.
both those guys.
Yeah, it makes sense there. And again, if in some of this, if they're spending too, they can play again the compensatory game with this, of course, because it doesn't cost compensatory against that plus minus by bringing back your own free agents. Um, I'd be with you on that. I sure would be probably interested in potentially kicking the tires on some of those guys that being a David Njoku or even an OJ Howard too, just to see what they would be costing if what their market is. They're very interesting talents, I think, still as far as players go. But that's like running back's not the worst thing. And again, you got bigger things you got to deal with too on this team, I think, as far as issues. And one of those big issues to me would be the offensive line. Um, this one we'll have to deep dive in a little bit on. You've got Lewis at left guard this year. He went backwards, obviously. Gabe Jackson first year here. Dwayne Brown due to be a free agent. Brandon Shell due to be a free agent. Curran playing well. What do you do with this
I mean,
thing in front of you?
yeah. I mean, you got to kind of go step by step, right? So, left tackle, I think, is probably the biggest need that we have this offseason. I think the most important thing right now, if we started the season today, our starting left tackle would probably be, is Jamarco Jones still on under contract,
I
or is
think
he a
he's a
free
free
agent?
agent this year.
Yeah, exactly. So you're literally down to Stone Forsythe and nothing else. Like, who's the backup left tackle on the roster contracted through 2022 right now? Is it what we would just put Kyle Fuller over there because apparently we think he can just play every position? I guess.
Yeah, they love Kyle Fuller, man. I wouldn't see them stopping it.
Mhm,
They wouldn't preclude
mhm.
them.
So even if we believed in Stone Forsythe completely, we would still need depth there. We would still need to bring in some backups, somebody who can play out there. And there's no way we can put all our faith in Forsythe based off like 14 snaps in 2021. So you've got to hit the left tackle spot hard. To me, that is probably the highest need. Left guard, I have as a low need because I am aware that Gabe Jackson is getting older, and I don't have a lot of confidence in this coaching staff to move Damian. Well, uh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I got that backwards. Excuse me. So, left guard, I kind of feel like is going to be a no need because between Phil Haynes, Gabe Jackson,
Gabe
and
Lewis.
Damian Lewis, you should be able to figure it out.
Mhm.
Like there's got to be some combination you can make. Like Phil Haynes, I believe, is a natural left guard anyway. So if you're going to play him anywhere, it should probably be there. So I think you've got something there if you want to roll that way. You've still got Gabe Jackson. You've still got Damian Lewis. I don't think you can invest too much more in that particular position, regardless of whether or not you swap players out.
Mhm.
Center, I think, is a high need because both of our centers are free agents. As of right now, our center would probably be Damian Lewis. So
Yeah.
he would bump over because he's done it before.
Oh, no, he has.
Um,
I was gonna ask you, so if we're looking, because obviously if we don't, I think they are gonna look to bring back Posick. I think Carroll's indicated that even a little bit of that they will try to do that. There was 2 guys I wanted to ask you on with this that are significant free agents at center, maybe 3, if you want me to include this 3rd guy. But if you have to have your pick at this point of a 31-year-old Ryan Jensen, a 35-year-old Jason Kelsey, or a 33-year-old Ben Jones, cost not being, we got money to spend, okay? So we're not going to worry about cost. You get to pick the player of those 3. Who do you take?
I probably take the youngest guy. I probably take Ryan Jensen. Kelsey's at the age where he could fall off a cliff at any moment, and it won't be surprising. And Ben Jones is not that far behind, so I would probably just play it by age. But I would be okay with all those 3. I think.
Yeah, I'd be okay with all of them too, but I agree with you. I think to me, he's moving in the guy you said on that was he's moving in the same place Corey Linsley was last year, about the same age. Yeah, they played a lot of football, but they're not really old, 30's 30.6 according to the sports track. So he's not even into 31 yet. That's still a couple of years. All we need is 3 years. So we can get a couple of years Super Bowl run out of you and then we'll be fine. So, we probably have to do addressing it in free agency, I think with center. I don't think it'd be as easy in the draft, though there are a couple of good guys in the draft. I think there'll be a little bit of a run on centers this year, though, to a degree, especially with Creed Humphrey. His success, I think, is going to draw centers up a little bit this year, his instant success. And not just
Right.
him, Landon Dickerson,
Right.
too.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with getting a veteran center, though. I think I would probably prefer that if we're trying to win a Super Bowl in 2022. If we're going to try to
Yeah.
compete, give me a veteran who knows what he's doing. I know
Yeah.
Creed Humphrey just had a great rookie year, but a lot of the time, rookie offensive linemen have to get beat up a little bit. So why not circumvent that a little bit?
Yeah. It's a good point. It's a good point. And there's assets out there in free agency to go get those guys at. That's also, there's value out there to do with there being a couple of guys like there was last year. Center seems to be one you can go get in free agency if you're just willing to spend. David Andrews last year and Corey Lindsley. I think there's even another guy or two on top of that. Well, this brings us over to right tackle. We both like Jay Curhan this year. I think we've both been encouraged by Jay Curhan. There are some in my chat that go, Jay Curhan is number one right now. He's one. He's starter one, right side. We don't have to worry about that. We're good here. I'm reticent on that. I like Curhan. Are you just slotting him in as your starter now next year, right where it is?
I put right tackle as a medium need in my list. Even if Curhan is the guy, you do need depth, and I don't know who the backup right tackle is right now if you're losing Jamarco Jones, because Shell's a free agent as well. As of right now, the backup right tackle might again be Kyle Fuller. I think Pete Carroll just wants to clone Kyle Fuller 5 times and have 5 Kyle Fullers making up his whole offensive line. That's probably the strategy as of right now. But yeah, I would love to have him compete with somebody. Maybe you could even bring back Brandon Shell, because Shell's not a bad player at all. I don't think Shell's bad. And then you could say those two guys compete, and whoever plays the best gets the starting job. Or you could bring in another right tackle. I haven't looked at the list yet. There are still some right tackles that I really like from this draft. Like we've talked about Falele a lot. He may end up being a first-round pick, but there's got to be some way to make him compete, to drive him to be better. You can't just hand him that role.
Let me ask you this way, I guess. Let's say you spend your money in free agency in other places, left tackle, center. You have a choice of, and this is going to be an unfair question for you because I know you like Daniel. You got a choice of Daniel Falele in the second round, or picking up a guy in the 5th round who could be a good backup good backup right tackle.
No, I would do the 5th round thing. I think that with the gold vein that you may have found with Jay Curhan and the limited resources you have this offseason, you can't really spend your 2nd round pick on a right tackle now. Okay. I think you kind of need to shy away from that a little bit, because you've got limited resources to work with. Now you got to go, wow, we got really lucky finding this Curhan guy in UDFA. We got to ride with it and hope it holds out, and we got to spend our resources elsewhere. So no, I don't want to spend a 2nd round pick on a right tackle at this point, unless we, for some reason, don't think Curhan's the guy, which at this point, I don't know how anybody could not at least be willing to give him a chance. The dude played well.
He did. And that's why I wanted to kind of just understand how much confidence you kind of had. It'd be hard for me to pass on Paul Bunyan, man. It'd be hard to be passing that big axe that Falele brings, because I loved his tape. But I can get the thought process beyond it. You're right. We are restricted. We don't have a 1st round pick. We do have money to spend. There's a lot of places though to spend it on. So I guess would you put a kind of as a sort of a breakdown on what you're saying a little bit here on this line? If I was to say, is Teron Armstead your number 1 free agent target this offseason, would that be a correct statement?
That sounds about right to me. The left tackle spot, unless we bring back Dwayne Brown, which is not impossible, by the way, with the way he played the second half of the year. As much as I don't really want to do that, maybe we'll talk about that in a future video. But it's just such a black hole at that spot that you have to do something to address it. And in Carroll's defense, in Schneider's defense, they have seen a desperate need at left tackle with this team before, and they went out and made sure they got a premier left tackle in Dwayne Brown. They traded for him midseason. So they've shown a willingness to address that spot before, and I would hope they would do that again. But yeah.
And Russell Okung before that, the highest pick that they've made in their tenure here was for a left tackle. Right. So they understand the need in it. All right, well, let's flip over here to the defensive side of the ball. I think you kind of put your highest needs there on the offensive side of the ball, as I understand a little bit, is left tackle, center, need to address the running back room. Those seem to be kind of and
Yeah,
tight end, and then running back. Sorry.
yeah, I would say tight end. Now, again, it's all relative. It's not that
Yes.
hard to find running backs. It's not that hard to find tight ends, but it's hard to find the left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
You got to
Agreed.
spend money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree, and that's why you got to make it the priority because that's for that reason, I think, and how you stack these up. All right, well, let's look at the defensive side of the ball, and let's go back to front on this, Brendan.
Okay.
Let's start with the safeties because there's some interesting choices to be made here. Can we both first start out from the point understanding that Jamal Adams isn't going anywhere this offseason? Can
Right.
we begin? We can be okay. We can begin there. Um, all right. Poor Quandre Diggs. The toughest moment of the season watching this game this year for me, Brendan. There's not a lot of tough moments in football. It just tends to be fun. It tends to be heartbreaking because your team loses, but not actually heartbreaking moments. It was heartbreaking to watch Quandre Diggs and I know you're going to watch it live because you had to watch it, I think, at that point in replay. But
Yeah.
watching it live with the tears streaming down his face and it was like Dak last year where you just felt for the guy because he's earned a payday and this is going to somehow, unlike Dak, this is going to impact his value.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do here with Quandre, man?
It depends on the price, and I mean, I'm going to say that a lot because that is the case. Is he going to be a $12 million a year player? The way he played the last 2 years, I think he kind of deserves it. But with what happened in that fourth quarter of the Cardinals game, he might not get it.
Yeah.
I think his skill set might not be as valued by other teams as we do. We really value that single high safety that can take away the big play. I think a lot of these other teams, they don't. They play their defenses differently. They don't have a guy who's always protecting against the big play the way that Quandre does. So maybe the market won't be there for him. But I just can't go that high with it. I can't really go. I don't know if I can go higher than $8 million a year because we've already got all this money into Jamal, and you've got to spend money elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. I think
So yeah.
I think that's a pretty good mark that'd be boy, it's hard for me to pay both safeties, Brendan. There's a part of me just goes, I just can't pay him. There's a part of me that just goes, I just can't. I look across the league and there's 31 teams that don't pay two safeties top of the market at the same time. And I just go, boy, I just don't know if I can pull it off, but I understand that maybe you have to a little bit. I mean, he's earned the contract. It's a little bit like Chris Carson, right? It's almost like we're playing Chris Carson a bit where Carroll looks at it and goes, man, good soldier, great player for us. Nobody's going to give him as much money as he should. We should be actually giving him some more money and then kind of override Schneider a little bit. And you're left with them signing him at $8 million. I'd at least be like, okay, I can deal with that. 12 million, Brendan. And I might freak out a little bit. $30 million into the safety position at that point is that's a little rich. I don't know how you can roster build everything out if you do it that way.
Yeah, especially when we know we're not going to be unlocking the full potential of Jamal Adams because we're stuck in this stupid cover 3 that doesn't allow him to do all the things that Jamal Adams can do.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason to believe we're going to radically change that in 2022. So you've got that already looming over your head.
I sort of like the thought process in this as it pertains to the safety of you going out and finding a free safety, maybe in the draft, bringing Marquise Blair into to compete with him at that free safety position, riding with Jamal, and then also then putting a little money into Ryan Neal on a very low end deal. Make it $2 million a year or whatever, right? But then you have some insurance then for Jamal. Whereas if you bring back Quandre and now you have $30 million into the safety position, I can't bring in Ryan Neal on a 1 year, $2.5 million deal, even because then we're pushing up even just too high at that point for just safeties, unless you can count Ryan as sort of a de facto dime corner too.
I mean, I think the last month has exposed that Ryan Neal's not really a safety. I haven't been that impressed with him. His coverage numbers have been atrocious.
Yeah.
So I think of him more as a corner, and I think of him as the kind of player who needs to play 25 snaps a game and not 75.
Yeah, very well put on that. I think so. The more he plays, kind of the worse he gets. He's better on just giving him the little, here and there. The dime package corner to me, Brendon, is where he would be best if you could bring him back. But what do you think about that as another option? You draft a free safety, you bring Marquise Blair, they compete rather than Quandre moving that $8 million somewhere else.
That's kind of my preference, unless the money with Diggs ends up being a lot lower than I'm thinking it is.
Yeah.
So I think that's just an area where you're going to have to make a tough decision. You're going to have to let that go. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. If Pete Carroll's a defensive back guru, which he is supposed to be, then he should be able to make that work without paying all the money in the world.
Exactly. Yeah, 100% agree with there. 100% agree on that. Well, let's look over at corner here. We've got some free agents pending. Obviously, DJ Reed standing at the head of them. For me, that's our number one free agent priority for me as far as bringing back, even beyond Rashad Penny for me and my money is getting him here. I don't want to get up into the stratosphere though. Shaquille Griffin's deal looms over this situation like nothing else. 14.5 million just sitting there staring in the face. And so there is this, like we've talked about with Quandary a little bit, there's definitely a price for me with DJ. Are you want to bring back? Are you convinced me at this point that Carroll could just buy with secondhand parts, get the pass rush beefed up, and we can just do buy with the least, you know?
I think I would let Reed go personally after really thinking about it. I like him. He's been awesome for us. I think people don't even understand how good he was this year. But I got other things that I got to focus on right now. And again, I just don't want to spend more money in the cornerback room when you've got Pete Carroll. He's supposed to be able to do this. This is what he was made for. He
Yeah.
spent his whole career turning chicken, you know what, into chicken salad at the cornerback spot. So let him do it again. He's already I did it with Sidney Jones. I would love to bring back Sidney Jones. Probably not going to cost any more than $3 or $4 million. Do that. And then you've got Trey Brown, hopefully coming back at some point next year. You've got some young guys on this team who showed at least a little something, like John Reed, Michael Jackson, bless you, Austin. You've got the ability to maybe draft somebody in the 5th or 6th round, which we've had a decent success rate doing. So I don't think I want to bring Reed back.
It's understandable on that. I can get where you're coming from with it. And again, it's played out. Michael Jackson, John Reed, bless on. There's all these guys that, just came in and did just fine. They held up just good. And frankly, Brendon, the better the pass rush got, the better they looked. And that just leads more into the thought process, the philosophy of, we don't need the corners to be great here. We need the pass rush to be great. And the thing that's been missing for years now has been the pass rush being great. And let's see what happens once we turn that back to something awesome again and see how that maybe impacts the potential corner play there on the outside. So you would ride then back with Sidney Jones, basically Trey Brown, and then you probably look to draft something in 3rd, 4th, 5th round, just find another corner in there at that point.
Yeah, and you might bring back some of the. I think we already gave a future contract to Michael Jackson Sr., so he's going to be back if we want him. Bless you, Austin, John Reed. You could go make another Sidney Jones trade. Find another corner who you think has the skills that will fit your defense. Do that again.
Yeah.
There are cornerbacks who can play like that all over the place.
Yeah.
So I think that's my preference. My thing is just that, if we really are going to run this back, we gotta go all out to make it work, and that means investing heavily into this offensive line. So at a certain point, I just have to I just have to shake my head at spending big money at some of these other positions. You've already spent your big money on the defense with Jamal Adams. You've already spent your big money in some ways with Poona Ford and Carlos Dunlap. Those guys are making decent money too. So I got to pump the brakes a little bit.
Makes sense. I always say it's roster balance, and you don't have infinite amount of money. You've got to balance off how you do things, and you got to pull from one place and go cheap somewhere so you can go a little heavier in other places. And I mean, quite frankly, just in general, if we attack the offense and defensive lines this offseason, I would be a very happy camper as far as this offseason was concerned. I would be like, that's great offseason. You did it right. All right, well, let's look at the linebackers. Another interesting one here. We've got Bobby Wagner talking a little bit about maybe a willingness to restructure coming up. Jordan Brooks played another season at the will this season. Cody Barton came in at the middle, looked okay there. Benson Mayowa played a lot of Sam snaps. Gerald Taylor played some. Robinson played some. To my eyes, I think Benson got kind of the most run over there at Sam. Not great run at that. Boy, the linebacker position, Brendon's another one where there's it's not a mess, but there's kind of some stuff to kind of unkink here to figure out how you want to run this going forward.
Well, my initial take on the linebacker spot was I said we had no need at Mike because we've kind of got 3 linebackers who all want to play Mike, right? Wagner, Brooks, and Barton.
Yeah.
It looks to me like, and even if you let Wagner go, as far as I'm concerned, you've already spent your bullets on the middle linebacker spot because you've got Brooks, 1st round pick, Barton, 3rd round pick. Both those guys seem like they're more middle than anything. I also said for Sam, I said no need because maybe I'm being a little too optimistic here, but I still really think Darrell Taylor can play that Sam linebacker well. And I think he should be the guy that we have earmarked for that. And if not him, I think it's not that big of a deal because Sam linebackers don't play that much. You're usually in nickel anyway. If you have to go back to Benson Mayo again, that's fine, I guess. I mean, he was pretty jaggy this year, but he wasn't terrible. You've got other guys on this team who can do it probably a little bit too. You can go pull Bruce Irvin off the couch if you really need somebody. I don't consider Sam to be that big of a deal right now. I think we have somebody on this team who can do it. To me, the linebacker spot that we need to think about is the will, because as of right now, you've got Brooks playing the will, who he got lit up in coverage this year, absolutely destroyed. I know he's a good player. I know he did good things, but some websites say he gave up over 1,000 yards in coverage. Like he gave up more yards than everybody except Trayvon Diggs, who gave up like all the yards.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
So
it's hard to do as a linebacker.
Yeah. So Barton, I feel like the skill set is there for him to be the will, but it hasn't manifested itself yet. So I can't bet on it. He's been here 3 years now and we haven't seen it. Not really anyway. Maybe we saw it a little bit that 1 year he got to play at the end of the season. So to me, I'm really focusing on the will. I did a little bit of draft scouting a few months ago with the will spot, but to me, that's where my focus is. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we'll be left with on this is it's kind of two different things, right, Brendon? It's a little bit of like this one of those questions you answer where it's like what I would like to do and what I think will happen. What I would think will happen is that Coach Carroll will keep Jordan Brooks at the will. He'll bring back Bobby Wagner. He'll restructure Bobby Wagner, and Brooks will be brought back as sort of that, special teams guy, backup to both positions guy. I still cannot. I don't have any faith in Barton at the will or the Sam. I think that he's just a middle at this point and probably a fringe middle linebacker in the sport at that. I would like to see a will linebacker brought in. That would be my ideal. I mean, my ideal on this would be you move Jordan Brooks to the middle. Some of his coverage deficiencies start to go down because I think, as you saw this year, it wasn't Bobby Wagner was that much better in coverage than Jordan Brooks. It's just that Bobby's not being tested in the same way at the middle as the guy at the will is, and I think there's a vast difference there, especially when you as a team stay in nickel situations rather than going to dime when teams go to 4 wide receivers. So that would be my way of going. And then you look for the will replacement wherever you need to look for it from. You can go take your pick down the line as far as going to find a veteran. It's another one of those spots that, KJ Wright was unsigned deep into the start of training camp this year. KJ's not great anymore. He's old. I wouldn't necessarily want him in the fold, but it's just an example of the fact that you could go out there and get something probably relatively cheap. Now you have Jordan Brooks potentially playing like, I'm not going to go all world middle linebacker, but at least a Pro Bowl level middle linebacker. Then you're building that from the starting place. And now you go over the will to kind of build in around that. But that would be the method I would approach here. I would just finally put Jordan in his natural position. I thought this from the day he was drafted. He's a middle linebacker, Brendon. That's what he is. He's a middle linebacker. He's a Bobby clone. And Bobby could have played will early on in his career too. They talked a lot about that with Bobby. Oh, he could play. Never did. Always stuck in the middle. And I think that just put him in that natural spot and he'll flow, man. He will flow.
Well, one other thing, I was thinking about the Wagner stuff. Honestly, if I'm Russell Wilson and I hear that we're bringing back Bobby next year for anything more than like vet minimum, I would probably immediately request a trade because that's just to me the greatest sign that nothing is going to change and I need to get out of here because I'm not going to get the offensive line that I want, So maybe I don't know. It just drives me crazy.
Well,
that
I
we're
still
actually having this conversation.
I mean, too. Look, this is all in frustration because we know some of the stuff is still going uphill and it's not being corrected. I do still land on the spot, though, that if you take Russell from last offseason where he's laying groundwork, putting the cement bricks down to foundationally eventually leave town, not last offseason, kind of slightly pushing for offseason, but to lead towards this offseason with an eye towards it being this offseason if the season went FUBAR, which it went FUBAR for him. And now he seems to be giving us indications here that he's actually coming back. To me, the logical conclusion I deduct from that is that he's been given assurances that they've given, i.e., to your point on this, Brendon, look, don't worry about what we do with Bobby. Don't worry about what we do with Bez. We are going to put significant portions of this cap to the offensive line. We're going to buy you a left tackle. We're going to buy you a center. You know what I mean? We're going to get some help for Curhan over on the right side. I think he's been given, I can't think that he's just been told, all right, Russ, we'll see you next year. Great. See you next year, guys. All right, bye. We're good. I can't think it's just like that. There's been some carrot dangled in front of him to say, we realize where we've gone wrong, like a scorned lover, I mean, we're like, we're gone wrong. We love you, baby. Now we're going to be with you forever, baby. We love you. Love you. No, never going to do this again, baby. I'm never going to cheat on you again, baby. We're never going to do that. I feel like there's a little bit that playing. Do you think I'm off on that?
I'll believe it when I see it, I guess is what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah.
I mean, Carroll spent so many words in these recent press conferences trying to indicate that he wasn't going to change his philosophy on anything. And part of that philosophy is like, we don't want to overspend in free agency ever, when sometimes you have to. We've talked about this before. Sometimes you have to overpay to bring somebody in. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're not going to get the top players. But anyway, that's really all I had to say about that. I just wanted to put that out there. If Wagner is here in 2022, then to me, that is like the canary in the coal mine for, nothing changed.
Yeah. I agree with you. Well, I guess I don't have to ask you then, is there a price you'd go with Bobby on a restructure to bring him back? Because $4 million is too much.
I honestly, because of the Brooks thing, I don't know if I would take Wagner back for free. I want to see Brooks at middle, because next year we're going to have to decide on his 5th-year option. I want to see him play his natural position before I make that decision. So
that's true. It's a good point.
I kind of feel like I wouldn't take Wagner back if he wanted to play for a hot dog, as weird as that sounds.
Yeah.
But, this whole thing could have been mitigated if you never took Brooks in the first place. So
there you want to talk about, there's really where we get outside the symptoms into the core of Brendon, and why I hated the pick in the moment, why I still don't like the pick. It's about picking him where you picked him, not necessarily just the player, but what you could have gotten instead of taking the pick this year, understanding now we're landing with Bobby 3 years later and he still wants to play. And while he's not playing great, he's playing fine at the middle linebacker role. If everything else was fixed on the rest of the defense, it'd be fine, right? He'd be doing that same Ray Lewis thing that Ray Lewis did in Baltimore at the end. Ray Lewis was not vintage Ray Lewis in the last 2, 3, 4 years of his career, right? He was not, but he was a leader. He got people lined up right. He could still get everybody motivated. So there was still a part for him in that defense. And I think Bobby could have done the same thing, but they would have needed to gone a different place with it. So it is what it is with it on that, but it still is infuriating, that pick still 2 years later now with it. And it has nothing to do with Jordan Brooks or him, which is just, that's how often you say that about picks. Like, God, this pick still pisses you off. It has nothing to do with really him as a player. It's just everything else that went into that pick, from where you picked him to what the position you picked him to, what was at play with the rest of the team dynamics. Okay, so let's get to the defensive line here a little bit. Another very interesting crew here. You save $900,000, only a mere $900,000 by moving on from Carlos Dunlap. Daryl Taylor obviously showed you finally the flashes of what made you give a 2nd and 3rd round pick to move up in the 2nd round to get him. Poona Ford, this is a bit of an odd one, and I'm going to want to pick your brain on this one. Poona Ford, to my eyes, was not good out of the 3 tech this year. It wasn't bad. About league average, I guess, out of a 3 tech, maybe a little bit, but below a league average as far as a pass rusher, upper level as far as a run.
That last game barely got him into the top 10 in ESPN's pass rush win rate for defensive tackles.
I saw that. That's what I was going to ask you about. Like, I saw that stat and I go,
I think half of his QB pressures came in that last game, and I think that kind of actually pushed him all the way up.
Yeah, I thank you, because that's what I was thinking. I was seeing too. I'm like, something about that stat just doesn't match my eye test on what I watched with Poona on the field this year, because I didn't see a guy with top 10 defensive tackle. Why? Maybe this is a down year in the NFL as far as pressure rates from defensive tackles, but I didn't. Again, not bad. He wasn't. I don't want to overstate. Like Poona was just horrible. The thing I hate about it is Poona was less than what he was at the 1 tech. And that's the part. You paid him money to move him out of the position where he was at his best. That's the part that probably just frustrates me on it. Where are you at with it?
Yeah, I think Poona needs to move back to the 1 tech immediately. And I think that if we do that, then that position's probably looking pretty good. I don't know if we're going to bring back Al Woods, but if we move Poona back to 1 tech, we don't necessarily need to. Remember, Brian Monet is kind of a 1 tech himself at this point. So you can also bring him back for very cheap. Nobody's going to offer him big money.
No.
He's he's not bad. He's not bad or anything. I don't have anything negative to say about him, but he's not going to get big money. So the one tech position I think is going to be fine if you're smart enough to move Puna back, which I hope you are, because it's I made a video on Tuesday talking about the personnel decisions made in the last offseason. And the thing was, I kept seeing decisions that the team made that were good, and then they undermined it by doing something else. Like the Gabe Jackson trade was good, but then you move Damian Lewis to the left side and it undoes the good.
Yeah.
The Puna Ford re-signing was good, but then you move Puna to a position where you notice the bad things with him more than the good things. There were a couple others too where, like, okay, yeah, that's a fine move. I don't have a problem with it, but you found a way to make it less good by just this stupid stuff. Like Ethan Posick was worth $3 million this year, but bringing him back in the first place is why you ended up with Kyle Fuller for half the season, which probably cost you a couple games because he was that bad. So on and on.
Well, you knew too, Ethan Posick has played 4 professional seasons. Every professional season Ethan Posick had, he's missed more than just 1 or 2 games. He's missed like half a season nearly in every one of those years. Build within your plan base to have to build within for that injury. Don't lean back on a Kyle Fuller. Have somebody with some talent behind him to back him up. Maybe a Justin Britt you would have taken. I don't know what you would, just something out there that you would have looked at and taken a look at to try to help, build up against that injury situation, say nothing of what you dealt with at the guard position and whatnot. So with your scenario, and I can take Brian Monet or leave him at this point. To me, he's just kind of like just I mean, especially where I think you only usually like to run with 3 defensive tackles on the active roster. So you've got I think they bring back Al Woods. We're hearing indications of that. Probably a 1-year, $3 million deal like you paid him this year, right? He's 36 years old. He ain't going to make a lot of money on the open market, even though he was pretty impactful. He was way more impactful as a defensive tackle and pressure rates than, to me, Puna Ford was. You bring those 2 guys back, your 1 tech. Now we've got the 3 tech. And this has been one of those long problem places since Michael Bennett's left. What do you do with the 3 tech?
Yeah, I have 3 tech listed as a high need this offseason for sure. I was hoping that Collier could move inside this year, but it didn't happen. And even if he did, I don't know if he would be good at it. I just kind of had this idea in my mind that he would be able to rush the passer from the 3 tech spot, but clearly, I think we're done with the LJ Collier experiment. Rasheem Green occasionally moved inside, and I guess he was okay, but I don't think he's going to be back. And we got to do a little bit better than that anyway. Yeah, we definitely need a 3 tech. That might be something you attack in the draft. Unless you get Fletcher Cox. That would be kind of the home run swing, right? Fletcher Cox. But I don't know. I don't know if that's realistic.
I mean, the thing I noticed about this with the free agents, Brendon, that you have pending on this is it is the old man club here. We're talking old man. Brandon Williams, he's a 3-4 defensive tackle. You're not bringing him in. But Ndamukong Suh, I mean, 30. You want 36-year-old Ndamukong Suh? I mean, Linval Joseph. The guy that would be expensive on this one that I wanted to ask you about, we were talking about in my chat the other night, was Larry Ogunjobi of the Cincinnati Bengals. Kind of back-to-back years where he's had pretty good productivity from the defensive tackle spot as far as that goes, but he's going to cost you a little bit of a penny as far as he ain't coming from a discount price. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you can put the money together for it, then I don't see any reason to be against it. That sounds like a decent idea to me. It's a big hole. You're going to have to spend some assets to fill that hole. Now, I do think it's something that you could address in the draft. I do think that you do see good rookie 3 techs, but I haven't done a ton of 3 tech scouting yet, so I can't tell you what those prospects would be. But I'm open to a lot of things at that spot because to me, if you're gonna go a little cheap at the secondary like I want to, and you don't bring back Reed or Diggs, you got to have a pass rush. You got to have a 3 tech.
Yeah,
who can get to the QB.
And pressure up the middle has been just it's one of the things that with our NASCAR packages, now it's the, I guess, Cheetah package. That was one of the ways we built it, is we'd have 2 3 techs on the field at one time back in the day. That's how you made that pass rush vibrant from the inside, not just Averill and Chris Clemens on the outside, but you had the inside guys getting the work done as well. Clint McDonald and Michael Bennett. And boy, if they could get themselves the hands, I mean, I think Puna can kind of give you some de facto stuff of that in the Cheetah at the 1. but you need that pure 3 guy that's going to get his one-on-one matchups and be able to go out there and hunt and get the job done when he gets those matchups. So I hope they address it that way. Brendon, I'm with it too, where I think offensive line, defensive line, again, that's my priority this offseason. You hammer both those 2 places. I think you could actually go kind of far on that on its own with just that and improving this team, even not fixing some of the other past mistakes that we've pointed to and looked at that have continued to repeat themselves, because it's still a game at the end of the day, in my opinion, that's won in the trenches. I know it's a cliche, but I think it still holds true.
Absolutely.
Real quick here, just another donation from Randall. Thank you, Randall. Says Brendon Brando. Do you plan to stream wildcard playoff game, wildcard game, and has his subs choose the game? Which game do you think your subs would choose? Brendon, I'm going to be streaming one of the playoff games. I posted a poll to the subs saying which one you want to see me stream. They picked, it looks like, Arizona and the Rams on Monday night. Which do you think your subs would be with on that?
I can't believe they would choose any other game than that, of course. Like that has to be the most interesting to us.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't really have anybody to root for. I don't think so anyway, but that's the game that's more interesting for sure.
No, I think so too. I'm interested to see that one from the insert, but I almost think the Rams are going to win that game. I don't have any, I think the Cardinals are just playing it 1-5 to end the season. No DeAndre Hopkins. To me, I look at that team and I just go, they've run out of gas. And the Rams, well, they're not playing brilliantly. I think that they're just, that's what kind of makes it a little less interesting a matchup for me, because I go, yeah. And then I look at that game with the Cowboys and the Niners, and that's the fun matchup to me. Like that's the one that's just
more. I mean, you got to remember though, it's the Eric Weddle unretirement party. Everyone wants to see that, right?
Tape fingers, baby. Tape fingers. That would have been my football look, by the way. If I was a football player, I would have done the old school tape the fingers up, that old school like 90s style where they did that. I always thought that made you look a little tougher on the field when you tape your fingers.
Yeah. Real quick question about that Cardinals Rams game though. We know that Oklahoma is supposedly looking to maybe hire Kingsbury to replace Lincoln Riley. Wow. If the Cardinals lose this game, do you think there's a chance Kingsbury bolts?
Yeah, I do, because I don't know that necessarily he's been there now where he's getting close to where the Cardinal management probably has to make a decision on him with giving him a contract extension or not soon, right? Hasn't he been there for 3 years? I mean,
this is year 3.
So I think he's heading into the last year of his contract, and they're going to have to decide what they want to do with him. I don't think he's necessarily if he lost this game, has he sold anybody over with that at that point? I don't think so. And they're getting into that position, that tough period, Brendon, now where you're going to this offseason have to probably give your quarterback a contract extension. Kyler doesn't strike me as the type who's going to want to play through his 4th year on that deal. So once you start paying that guy, and you're paying right now DeAndre Hopkins 28, you're paying JJ Watt 15, and now Chandler Jones is going to go to the front office, have faith in Kingsbury. When he doesn't have a loaded roster and a rookie quarterback on a rookie deal, does be as effective, and I say effective with quotation marks, as he has in the past. If I'm management, and I'd like to know your thought, if you're management, I would be saying no to him. I'd say, why don't you go take that Oklahoma job?
Yeah, I'm seeing in chat that apparently Oklahoma decided that they would already hire Brent Venables, which I would have waited a little longer, guys. I mean, no disrespect to Brent Venables, but Kingsbury could have won that. Well, I guess they're moving to the SEC now.
That might have. I forgot about that too. That might have stopped it, Brendon, because that's a tough pill. That's a tough pill for those college coaches to swallow.
I think Kingsbury's good, but I don't know if I would extend him after 3 years and no playoff wins, especially with the way they kind of flamed out this season. I think they kind of flamed out last season too. I think they started good. They looked like they were going to make the playoffs, and then they lost to the Rams backup quarterback in week 17 or something like that.
No, you're right. Yep. The guy that was the mobile guy they brought in last season. So I just don't think they've got to have that confidence in him. I don't know if, and maybe they'll ride it with him one more year to just see, but I don't know if the Kingsbury is going to be there long-term. And he doesn't impress me in the same way I get impressed at times by McVay and Shanahan. They're, I think, 2 of the more brighter coaches in a lot of respects in the league at times. But with that said, I don't get that same feeling with him of, oh man, he's so inventive and smart with what he does. He runs the spread stuff and tries to, pepper the ball over the football field with his quarterback. And it's like, okay, but it's hard to run out of that. It's hard to do spread formation 24/7 in the NFL, in my opinion, unless you got a guy like Brady that's just, picking guys just on little 5-yard routes all day long, which Kyler can't do that exactly. Now, if you guys can, You guys are like that with Brady. One more here. We got one more donation on this from Darth Soldier. Thank you guys. You've been very kind on the chat today. Appreciate you on that. Says, hello, gentlemen. I want to say that I hope we make some changes. Cough, cough, head coach and general manager. Cough. But I will always be a fan, even if I have to put the paper bag over my head again. very, very well said, Darth Soldier. And that's where me and Brendon are. You know, and Brendon talked about this a second ago. We've hammered this a bit. Probably I've hammered him a bunch myself. But we're going to make our peace with this. And we're going to have Coach Carroll's back if he's our coach going forward. We're going to call it as we see it still. But we're going to hope for his success. We're not going to say, well, I hope he has a horrible season now if we finally get the one we want next year. No, we're going to say, hey, let's hope they can turn this around. Let's hope that this thing gets switched into the right direction of things. I don't want to speak for you on that, Brendon. I mean, that's kind of where your head is at on it.
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, if I was capable of I was just capable of just stopping being a fan of this team, then I wouldn't even bother getting upset about any of this.
Yeah.
I would just at this point go, okay, I guess I'm going to root for the Chiefs now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it would be that easy. Then there would be nothing to get mad about. I would just go to another team. But no, we can't do that. We get upset because we are fans. But if we could just stop being fans, then there would be nothing to be angry about. So that's how this works.
Yep. And part of being a fan is that not all days are sunshine and roses. There's tough, bumpy rides, and you ride them out as you do, man. You know, and that's what we're doing right now. Is we're right. It makes you savor the flavor of the victorious times that much more. Charles Riley coming in with a bunch of donos today. Charles, thank you. Says hit the like button, jokers in the chat, especially if you want to see ADL Williams dog double stack. And there must be some internal. Please do, yes, hit that like button if you guys like what you're listening to on this stream as well. If you're not subscribed to Brendon Nelson's channel, why are you being so cray? You know, get over to his channel, subscribe. We're going to be riding on this long term, all off season. You're going to want to hear his thoughts. He does different stuff than I do. We kind of do some overlap, but we got kind of a different lanes we're in on this. You're rounding out your Hawk knowledge by doing so. So make sure you go over there to Seahawks Brendon Nelson's channel there. Subscribe to him. I appreciate you, Charles, for mentioning that on the chat as well. You got to mention that like button, Brendon. It does help with the algae. Helps with the algae, Brendon.
Helps more than you know.
That's right. All right. Well, let's we got defensive tackle, 3 tech. You're going hard. Are you going too deep on 3 tech? I mean, would you sign a 3 tech and then draft a 3 tech? Would you go a 2-for on it?
I don't think you need to go 2-for on it. You could just have somebody who camps. You could have a couple guys who just camp on the practice squad, and then you call them up every now and then. And if you need to, you can call them up permanently. Like, I mean, I wasn't in love with what Robert Nkemdiche did this year, but he played okay. Mm-hmm. Like, if you wanted to bring him back next year to just be somebody who hangs around in the practice squad until they put the bat signal up in the air, that would be okay too. That's kind of how they used him this year. I would be fine with that, but it depends on who you bring in. If you bring in like a Fletcher Cox, then that's probably the only guy you would need at the 3 tech spot. But if you bring in somebody more like a Quentin Jefferson, then maybe you need to go get another guy because Quentin Jefferson's just okay.
Yeah. Would you flip, like I heard there's some disconnect in Washington right now, maybe with their talented 3 tech down there. Would you flip like a second, third rounder for that? I know it's a wild trade, but would you do something like that outside the box?
Or Jonathan Allen?
Yeah.
I don't think I can do it. I think I need to protect the assets that I have. I can't spend the asset on the defense right now. Can't do it.
Fair enough on that. All right, well, let's look at defensive end. First out the gate, we got to make our decision we got a couple guys to make a decision on with this, Brendon, because there's some savings to be had. I know you said you're okay with Benzema. Are you still okay with him though, knowing that you can save $1.5 million by moving off from him this offseason?
I'm pretty indifferent on that. Like he's not a bad player. He has a few good games a year. In 2020, he was actually one of the saving graces of our pass rush. I can pretty much go either way on that. I'm not going to complain either way. You can bring him back. If there's some really good need that you could address with that $1.5 million, then obviously go ahead and do it. But I don't think there's anything wrong with bringing him back.
If it came down to you sweetening the pot with that $1.5 million to bring Teron Armstead on, you cut him all day long and twice on Sundays. But if it's not absent that, you roll with him. All right, well, let's go Dunlap next. Yes, still taking up a decent amount of cap hit next year, but only saving $900,000 by moving on from him.
Yeah, I don't think there's any point in moving on from him. I feel like, and maybe we'll be proven wrong next year, but it's become relatively clear to me that The problem with Dunlap this year was the turf toe.
Yeah, I
Either
agree.
that, or he decided to fall asleep for the first 2 months, and then when the season was over, he decided to show up, which doesn't make any sense. Like, he's already gotten paid. He wasn't making a contract push,
Yeah,
unless he knows for a fact he's going to get cut at the end of the season.
yeah.
That doesn't really make any sense. So I'm good with it. I think our Leo spot is actually pretty good. You've got Dunlap and you've got Taylor.
Mhm.
Like, to me, that's a pretty solid Leo spot. You've still got Alton Robinson, who I have not given up on yet. I wish I knew how to quit you, Alton Robinson, but I can't.
Well, he's so tantalizing because when he plays like he gets 13 snaps and he's unbelievable, and then he gets 35 snaps and he disappears at times. But you
Mhm.
go, well, he's young still, second year guy. Pass rushers take some time to figure it out, So I'm with you. I'm still kind of like hopeful here that maybe there's a little bit in Alton's bag left as far as his development goes.
Yeah, so I like our Leo spot. I think we're good there. It's the 5 tech that I'm trying to figure out.
So Kerry Hyder, I guess, would be the next guy. Now you save about it's only about $1 million, I think, say moving on from Kerry this offseason.
Uh, boy, that's a tough one for me because I think you saved 2 million, like you said. He's not a bad player, but
Mhm.
I didn't get what I wanted from him this year. That's for sure. I didn't think he was going to be as good as he was last year for the Niners, but I thought he was going to be closer to that than this.
Mhm.
Um, again, it just kind of comes down to what can you do with that $2 million? Can you bring in a better 5 tech?
Yeah.
And it's hard to know. It's hard to know for sure, but he's not going to be critically expensive in 2022. So I'm kind of, it's kind of like Mayoa to me. I can
And
go either way.
he does, to me, he gives you at least something that Demea doesn't because he's got a plus to his run defense. He's a very
Mhm.
good edge defender as a run defender, which I don't know if Mayo has even got that in him, but that's it. When he's not getting you sacks or pressures, he's at least getting you that, in my opinion, which I like as far as the value on the team.
Yeah. So I would bring back Hyder. That's fine. But other than that, the 5 tech spot, like if we lose Rasheem Green, what else we got? Yeah, LJ Collier is still under contract for the moment, I guess.
I think
That's
he's
about
out
it.
after this year, though. He's gone after this year. I don't think they hold the only reason he's on the roster this year is going to cost too much. You had to pay money to get rid of him. This
Yeah.
offseason, it now flips to where you actually save $1 million by moving off from LJ. And I think that'll be
Mhm.
enough impetus to push him on down the road at that point. They had games where he was inactive this year, multiple games. That's they've shown they tried to they gave him some sprinklings this year, and you just weren't getting anything out of him. I mean, though, again, just to your point earlier, never underestimate Carroll's power of idiocracy and to apply it with a player that you've got enough tape to realize this ain't happening, and he still thinks it's there. It's somewhere down there, deep inside in a reservoir you can't
Yeah.
see.
Yeah,
Somehow.
I mean, if we can get Rasheem Green back for vet min, 1 year vet min, then okay, sure, I guess. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think somebody out there is going to go 15 million, 3 years, 15 million or
Yeah.
something like that. Somebody's going to do it. And
Yeah.
I can't go there. Not even close.
No, I agree. Somebody's gonna pay Rasheem. Rasheem's the one guy in that, as far as the free agents on defense, I really don't want to be brought back almost at any cost, quite frankly. I just want to get
Mhm.
better at that position, more impactful. He's been the same player for basically the last 3 years. He got more snaps this year, but he's given you the same kind of productivity over the last couple of years. So we've got you looking at targeting a 3 tech with like a kind of a silhouette of like a Fletcher Cox type as an ideal, not even exactly that, but kind of silhouetting pass rusher. Okay, let's save just for a second. One of Mayo and Hyder goes. You clear one roster spot off. You have Alton, you have Dunlap, you have Daryl Taylor coming back. I'm guessing you would look somewhere then to address a pass rush, but then I
Mhm.
would also guess you're going to look to address that not in free agency rather than draft because the draft can be such a crapshoot lower on in the draft with pass rushers.
Yeah, although I'm not crazy about the free agents who are available. It's guys like Clowney, it's guys like Tack McKinley, guys like God, who's that other guy? It's
Dante
just a bunch of
Fowler.
Dante Fowler. Yeah, damaged goods. For the
Yeah.
most part, it's damaged goods. So I'm not crazy about that. But if we could find a 5 tech who could get after the quarterback, then I think we would be looking pretty good for 2022 with Dunlap and Taylor on one side. I just don't know who that guy is yet, and it's not a great free agency class, in my
I'll,
opinion.
I'll tell you, I know he's a divisive guy, but Clowney had a really good year this year with Cleveland. He's a good run stopper. You could put him over at the 5 tech. He can handle all the run stuffing duties and give you some pass rush from that edge. Wouldn't be not going to cost a lot of money because he's got some injury history and he's still only 28 years old. He's not even 30 years old yet as a player. He'd be a guy that to me that'd be interesting to target from that angle. Again, with the 2 birds, 1 stone kind of concept you're looking to apply there a little bit. Could be interesting. Guy they have some familiarity with at that point that they could go back and look at. And you're right, though. I was just looking at the list there. There's a lot of, to your point on damaged goods, literally damaged fingers in the case of Jason Pierre-Paul, on top of being 33 years old. But Akeem Hicks, Jerry Hughes, Mario Addison, Emmanuel Ogbah is kind of interesting for the Miami Dolphins.
What's that one guy who was on the Raven? Yannick Ngakwe. Is he a free agent this offseason, or did he get paid?
He got paid by the Raiders.
Okay, yeah. I've always liked that guy, but yeah, not going to happen. Okay.
He would be the ideal you could bring in as that pass rush specialist, because as long as you put that guy in the lane of just rushing the passer, he's fine. It's when you ask him to have to play both the run and the pass that you get in trouble with him. But he's he's an absolute professional technician as a pass rusher, excellent with his hands. He'd be great if you could bring him in the fold. And let's face it, on this free agent list, the thing that we have to remember too is that there's going to be cuts. There's going to be guys that are moved in trades that isn't a part of these lists right now that we're not even talking about that will enter this fray at some point with, especially have teams that are like, I believe the Saints, maybe even the Eagles on that. There's a couple teams that they didn't eat all of it last year with their cap situation, which they were in some perilous situations, and instead they sort of halved it over a couple years. So we are going to have a couple teams with maybe some low hanging fruit we can pluck, at depressed values, of course.
Yeah. So, I mean, right now we have no need at kicker, so I don't think we need to talk about that until Myers is gone.
Well, wait, we got to talk about though, because Myers is giving you signed Myers to a big deal 3 years ago. First year of the deal, he performs at below league average as a kicker. Next year of his deal, he plays one of the best kickers in the league. This year, he's back to below league average as a kicker. You save Brendon $4 million moving off from Myers at this point. Is it?
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. Kicking in this league is so random. Like, why would you pay any kicker $5 million unless he's Justin Tucker?
Right.
So just save the money, go spend $1.5 million on a kicker, and call it good. I don't care who it is. You could go get what's the name of Nick Folk, who just is playing. If the Patriots let him go, you can go get one of these kids from the draft. I don't really care what you do because kicking is random. But
yes. I agree. And again, I'm harping on this a little bit, Brendon, because I think this is another one of those things where you go, Carroll, you've made this mistake a couple times now in your recent history here. Hauschka, who is revered by the fan base because he was the kicker when we won the championship and renowned through, I get it. Couldn't kick past 43 yards. That was his distance. He did not have any kind of leg at all that could go into the 50-yard range of things. And well, I mean, look, while you're accurate inside 43, that's great. It wasn't like he was amazingly accurate, and we paid money to him. You gave him a couple million a year, and it's look, we talk about roster building and going light on corner or going light on running back and trying to just build bodies in these places. Well, here's another spot where you can save a little bit of money to apply it elsewhere, and a place that you can learn a lesson that you've made a mistake on prior, in my opinion, multiple times over recently.
Yeah. And again, like I said, I don't really care how you address it. Rookie, go get a veteran. It doesn't really matter to me. But you cannot pay a kicker who isn't Justin Tucker $4 million a year. Honestly, if it were up to me, I would just pay a random kicker $1 million a year every year. Just have like a kicker carousel.
Yeah.
And it's just as likely to work as keeping a kicker around long term, because every year we see sometimes they make their kicks, sometimes they don't. And I actually went to a preseason game in 2014 where Stephen Hauschka made a 58-yarder, and I always wondered, where is that? Where is that in a game that actually counts?
It would drive me crazy, Brendon, because they get to the 36, and they bring out John Ryan, and not Brian punting through that era. And I know that they trust their defense at that time and everything else, but like, you occasionally need your kicker to be able to kick a 50-yarder, in a game for sure, and I never understood with him why they didn't. But if you look at Hauschka's stats in his career, not many kicks past the 43-yard. That's about his line. 43 yards in a game, about where his line was at, where it was in Buffalo or here or anywhere else. But I agree with you. Just go cheap, save your money there, and move
Yeah.
forward with it. I think we've covered kind of the most of the positional groups. I've got a good idea. You're looking offensive line, you're looking defensive line. These kind of questions pose into, they said, build into where my next question goes with Carroll here, in the respect of, here's the roster moves we want to make. What does Coach Carroll have to do? Let's go beyond roster now. Let's go into maybe X's and O's, maybe motivation factor, maybe the way he runs competition on the team. It can be anything, okay? Outside of personnel on this, Brendon. To get this team to an elite state, not a good state, not a consistent good state, which as I'm saying, is a one and done. What does he have to do this offseason in his tool bag? What does he got to correct in his situations? And it can be just super general or super precise. It can be small or big, just that stand out to you.
I think the obvious one would just be stop putting players in a position to fail, like you did with Poona Ford this year, like you did with DJ Reed the first 3 games, playing him out of position too. People forget about that one because it was a lifetime ago, but that happened too. Kyle Fuller, I mean, playing him at all is kind of a felony, but playing him at guard is just asking for terrible things to happen. So give these guys the best chance to succeed. Even the first Jake Curhan game, you played him at guard. I knew it was kind of an emergency situation because you had a bunch of injuries, but put these guys in a position to actually succeed and be the best version of themselves.
To your point on that, you had, and we got to see him play pretty well here for the last couple of games. You had at that same point in time Phil Haynes, and you could have called upon Phil Haynes in those games to count, and he would, in that Cardinal game, he would have played better than Curhan. Curhan, the reason his score is lowered down by Pro Football Focus for the year, Curhan is, and it really is just because of how bad he played in the Cardinal game out of position at left guard. That's really
Niners, right?
Was it Niners? It was Niners. I'm sorry, maybe it was the Niner game, at the Niner game. And that's really what's draw down his overall stat. He'd be up about a little bit above league averages, his grade, if not basically for just that game. While you had Phil Haynes, who both of his games playing guard played at above league average level at the guard. Some of this stuff just sometimes doesn't seem hard, Brendon. On some of these decision making errors that they have, these snafus.
Right. That to me is the main thing. That's something that should be easily addressed. Yeah. Like Pete Carroll might be the only coach in the league who would do some of those things. Only guy who would stick Poona at 3-tech. Only guy who would play Kyle Fuller at guard. Just like he was probably the only head coach in the league who would have played Jimmy Graham as an inline tight end.
Yeah.
And I know it's kind of weird that I'm referencing something that happened, 5 years ago and saying this is something that is easily fixed when he's still doing it. But it is something that should be easily fixed.
Yeah, well, Jamal Adams too, right? I mean, Jamal Adams, you've how many snaps this year? What do you think probably was a percentage Jamal Adams snap if I took his times he was put in single high and times he was put in cover 2? 70, 75% of his snaps, Brendon, this year? I mean, it's you're still doing these same mistakes, and this is what causes me and Brendon to have a lack of confidence in Carroll, because you mentioned something happening 5 years ago, but the trend of it, if this was a song, we're getting to the chorus again, Brendon. We're about to arrive at that chorus again, that old familiar chorus, and we're looking for the song to change. It's been on repeat. It's effed out. We've heard it enough. Let's get to the new song. And Carroll can control these things, can he? I mean, this is the thing that is the irony of all this, is that it's not about being smart in his decision making or doing some brilliant twist of the knob to find some, fifth win to his career. It's just about paying attention to what you're doing wrong in order to fix it into the future.
Yeah, and the only other thing I would mention for now would be this whole defensive line thing where apparently we play run first when no one else in the league does. That could have been the problem this year for all we know. It's hard to know. We might have assembled a great defensive line like I felt like we did in the offseason, and then we just undermined it. So we'll see. We'll see if that maybe gets fixed. I doubt it at this point, but that's another thing I would really like to see.
And again, another thing I'd like to see too, but another thing that I think, to your point, very low likelihood that gets changed, because this is some of the bone marrow that exists inside of Coach Carroll's philosophy. He starts his defense. It absolutely starts before anything else. Turnovers, sacks, tackling, being schematically exotic. All of it goes out the window before one thing, first and foremost: stopping the run. So, will he be willing to go, up against that current when he's shown no willingness to go against smaller currents that he's unchanging on. This is his biggest current. This is his most tried and true thing to his defense that he wants. And again, I think it's housed in that 80s philosophy a little bit, Brendon, where it was more important. This was built out of the 80s, and it's evolved out of the way, but that's where it's come from in his beginnings of this. And it's built out of that. This is what you did in the 80s. You had to stop the run. Every team was running the ball 437 times a season. So you needed to have a defense. It was more important for the defense to stop the run. Now teams, even when they're getting yards on the run game against you, will lean away from it if they're getting more in the passing attack against you, which tends to be a little bit of what you get with the Coach Carroll defense.
Right. And I just, it's hard for me to believe that Carroll is the smartest guy in the room compared to every other coach in the NFL that does things one way and he's doing things his way. So
yeah,
that's just math. That's just me betting on math there, I guess.
Did you see that too with the conjunction of the story? There was the story coming out about potentially maybe within these meetings with Jody Allen and Carolyn Schneider that maybe Carroll was going to maybe it's not giving me a lot of confidence when they're using these terminologies, Brendon. Maybe possibly maybe that he would relinquish some of his power over to John Schneider. And did you see the part with that there was supposedly there's some scouts within the Seahawks organization that are just, you're getting a little bit of the vibes of like I'm getting the Al Davis vibes of him coming into the Raiders drafts back in the day. And it's that same kind of vibe of like, you're getting the impression these scouts are doing their work. They're putting their draft board together, and Carroll comes in here on draft day, and he's chewing his gum. He starts taking names and doing this crap. You know what I mean? Flipping this here, flipping that there. I don't know that he's doing that. I'm making a guess. But when I heard that come out with that in tandem with that story, that some of the scouts were maybe a little bit annoyed about getting overruled, like they're doing all this hard work, and then Carroll just comes in with his gut instinct on draft day. Did you see that part on that one?
I did see the part about him possibly relinquishing personnel control. Honestly, if he actually did face that, I kind of feel like he would just quit on the spot. He would just storm out of the building. Like I think the ego on that guy just wouldn't allow him to lose any of his power.
Yeah,
So we'll see, but I kind of just feel like he wouldn't go for that. He'd just be like, I'd rather hand in my papers.
And I think if that had come out of this meeting today, it would have been widely reported on, because the ownership and the people above Carroll would know that would be a win to throw to the fans. It would be see, we're doing something, we're not firing anybody, but at least we're doing this. But we didn't hear that. We heard maybe possibly, potentially they'll think about if they talk about for a long time, maybe.
Mm-hmm. But yeah. I'd love it though.
That would be awesome. It would be awesome if he does. And that's what Holmgren did. We talked about that before, but Holmgren did this back in his time. He relinquished the general manager deal and then was able to just concentrate on coaching. Coaching's hard enough, man. It's a competitive enough league. Wearing 5 hats at once is just, I think it's a little bit too much for these guys, in my opinion. I hate that model. Don't you, Brendon? Wouldn't you just like the model of you got a general manager, you've got your head coach, you've got your offensive coordinators, and everybody does their job. I think that's the best model to operate from.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. It works for a lot of teams.
We got another donation here from Randall. He says, how do we improve our draft process, Brendon? What's broken? What's changed from the first 2 to 3 years? I like the 2020 draft, which Brendon was notated on. Thank you for the donation, Randall. Appreciate you on that. What's gone wrong? Let me keep it up here. What's gone wrong with our draft recently, Brendon? If we look at the last 5 years, what has been going down?
Well, I think there are 2 obvious things you can point to here. One is we lost Scott McLaughlin after 2012. He may have been the architect behind some of those really good drafts. A lot of people point to him as being the real brains behind this operation those first 3 years. And the other thing is that Carroll got further and further away from his experience as a college coach. He knew less about the prospects, didn't know the things to look for. And obviously, you also had that thing where there was a period of time where the Seahawks were looking for a certain kind of player that nobody else really valued for a few years. Guys like Cam Chancellor and Richard Sherman and Brandon Browner. I guess you could throw in there Byron Maxwell. And then as the years went by and we had so much success, other teams start looking for those things. And now you don't have that leg up. It's like if back in the 1980s, you knew about the warp zone in Super Mario Brothers. Very few people knew about that. And if you were one of the kids who knew where the warp zone was in Super Mario Brothers, you were one of the cool kids who knew how to skip the whole game. And maybe in the 90s too, but now everybody knows about that warp zone. It's not cool to know about the warp zone anymore.
No, that's a great comparison. With the last 5 years, is there a cognitive tissue that I can draw between Malik McDowell, Jordan Brooks, LJ Collier, Jermaine Ifedi, And just in general, where things have gone bad drafting, and is there been a trend within it? Is it just them drafting badly, or is there something that you put as maybe the bit of this is the reason it's gone bad within that?
Yeah, it's that spark. What do they call it? Spark?
Mm-hmm.
There's like this one metric that,
SPARQ, spark.
yeah, that apparently we fall in love with constantly. We fall in love with people, what they do with the Senior Bowl. Like sometimes we make draft picks purely based off the Senior Bowl. It feels like it's it seems like we often draft like older players. Like we draft these 24-year-old, 25-year-old players, whereas other teams are getting guys who are 21, 22. So that way they have more upside. Our guys have already kind of tapped out physically. There's a lot of little things that add up, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. And by the way, very well put on what I think as far as what it was that allowed them to have their success early on. That combination of McLaughlin and Carroll's insider knowledge, I think, was pretty
Mhm.
devastating, along with your picking such unique players. But yes, I think it's not been one thing in this last 5 years that's gone wrong, but been a tiny death by a thousand cuts, little multitudes of things that have clipped you here, clipped you there, and then it just all adds up. I also think that they've gone wrong with their positional sometimes valuing of where they draft guys and where they put it. Getting, for instance, obviously LJ Collier, you grabbed a defensive end at that point, which isn't defensive end in the first round is great, but you picked the 17th defensive end in the first round, edge rusher. You have to take some of that into account, I think, a little bit. Or even Marquise Blair, who you pick high up in the second round, a guy who's a head hunting, heavy hitting safety. What's the value of that in the modern NFL? What is that guy going to supply to you on the football field versus going for another position there? So sometimes I think that they don't always draft. Jordan Brooks is another shining example of this, in my opinion, where you draft a guy in a position that he's not going to play his natural position for 3 years. Number one, you're picking the linebacker position in the first round. You're picking what's going to be a will linebacker, an outside 4-3 defense. I just think some of that versus, let's say, going for an offensive lineman, Brendon, right? Building the lineup instead with that type of pick, trying to maybe make your quarterback happy. So everything you said, I would just add on
Yeah.
to that just maybe as a little bit.
Yeah. I remember back when Tom Cable was here, apparently we felt like college offenses weren't really grooming offensive linemen correctly, like
Mm-hmm.
because so many offenses were running the spread. So we kind of felt like we could just spend no assets on the offensive line, bring in a bunch of randos, and we could teach them how to play the offensive line, and it would be no different than spending top draft picks on it. I think
Right.
that was the school of thought at one point. Really didn't work out. That's how you got Drew Nowak and what was his name, Christian Sokolai, and yeah,
Oh,
but that
yeah.
was the philosophy for a little while.
Yeah. Oh, it is, and it wasn't that they're wrong in that you got more of the spread formations and more patty caking. But again, this is where the smart coach looks at that like Belichick did at that time, or we're going back 10 years and go, okay, well, I'll start bringing in spread formations into my offense, and then when I bring the offensive lineman out of college, I don't have to teach them a whole new technique. They just continue to build off of what they've already started to build on from college. Whereas we go, no, we're gonna have to make you unlearn all those bad habits. We're gonna have to make you this and that. We're gonna have to resculpt you from the ground up, right? What's the easier way to go here? With the wind or against the wind? And that's again just another point of where if you changed a little bit offensively, maybe it would have been easier to go get those linemen at that point rather than grabbing defensive tackles that you were trying to turn into centers, like they fell in love with doing at times. So, but thank you for the $5 donation on that, Randall. I do appreciate you, brother. You're awesome. Well, let's see here. So, one last little thing here I want to get into with you, Brendon. Thank you for hanging on with me today. We got a couple hours in here, so we've been going strong, brother. I know I'm pushing it. Um, uh, if you were to pick one, I know that there's about 15 on your brain. I know there is on mine. If you were to pick one mistake that was made this year that you could rectify next season, and maybe you've already said it. So if I'm maybe having you repeat yourself on this, I'm sorry on that. But if I thought this would just be an interesting question because we've got to face it. We know that Carroll's not going to fix everything this offseason that we'd like to see fixed, or even a majority of the things. But maybe we can hope on maybe one major thing being fixed. One thing that seems just obvious to be corrected. Is there anything that you would say is this is my one thing, fix this?
Well, if we are going to run it back with Wilson and Carroll and Waldron and da 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 da, then I would say make sure Waldron gets to run his offense in every game. A lot of these games, including the last game we played, felt very much like Pete Ball to me, and I could be wrong about that,
Mm-hmm.
but it felt like Pete Ball. If you're gonna go down, let's go down and actually give our guys a chance. If it fails, it fails. Then you get rid of them.
Yes.
But if you're going to keep undermining your coordinators, like Shane, you brought him in to implement new things. Let him implement those new things. If it doesn't work, then you can blow it up. But if you keep interjecting yourself into that, then we'll never really find out what these guys can do.
And we've seen that we've topped out at Pete Ball. With Pete Ball not having McLaughlin and insider information to grab Hall of Fame-like players for a 2-year, 3-year stretch within the draft, we've seen Pete Ball basically tops out with Russell Wilson, one and done in the playoffs. It can be successful. It can be potent. It can score you points. But it does top out. We don't yet know where the Waldron potentially tops out at if you put your trust within it, if you truly ride within it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I've seen the way this movie ends. I've seen it enough.
Yeah, we just no more repeats on this. So I appreciate you on that. All right, well let me get a couple more. We got a couple more donations. People being very kind in the chat today, Brendon. Thank you for hanging in here with me, and then we'll kind of wrap this up a little bit. So Charles with $10 donation says Brando and Brendo. Get ready for the Brendos, Brendon. When I hear you talk intelligently about football, it just makes me depressed. Can you invite a PC impersonator to come in chewing gum and say your ideas are crap and trade for Adams? we, we need an impersonator to come in just to crap all over ideas, Brendon. Just like the scouts are probably getting crapped on in the front office. So, something like that. Well, thank you, Charles. I appreciate the kind comment, and we try to be intelligent with it. That's what the mark we're trying to aim for with this, as far as getting the discussion to a little bit of a deeper level than just surface. Again, part of why I like your channel so much, Brendon, and what you're doing over there. Nolan Stout, thank you for the $5 donation. You're awesome. All of you guys are awesome in this. Says, do you think the defense will be terrible for the first 4 to 6 games in the upcoming season? And Nolan, of course, talking about Brendon the last 2 years, this being the common case.
Well, I don't know what it is. Carroll intimated that he thinks it's because of COVID, because we didn't really have an off season 2 years ago, and he said we didn't have a full off season this year. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I mean, I bought the COVID thing in 2020 because we had no off season, but this year it kind of felt like a sad little excuse. So I don't know. I would assume that it probably would be, which is a problem because it's a trend right now, but time will tell.
Some of this, I feel like, is built a little bit, Brendon, in Coach Carroll's methodology and approach to building towards the season. Andy Reid, for instance, is a guy that strikes me at times as getting his teams almost at their, to a fault at times, getting them at their best right at the start of the year. And then kind of it can sort of trickle down as you go through. Cardinals, obviously, are a team that does this. We seem to be a team that will try to build in what we're doing and preserving injury situations and how we got the team ready to go physically and not having them necessarily peaked out from game 1, but to hopefully get to that peak by week 12, let's say, and then build off of it from there. Pete seems like he has a little bit of that methodology to his approach and how he goes about it. And I think some of that is a little bit within how they go so slowly at the start of the season, where they're just sort of feeling things out a little bit.
Yeah. There are a lot of different theories on why that might be, but it wasn't what ultimately derailed our season. What derailed our season was more so the offense in the middle of the year instead of the defense at the early part of the year. But everyone helps. I sure would like to have that Titans game and Vikings game back.
Yeah, or a little bit better defensive performance within it. Maybe that our offense could then beat those teams out. So I think it's likely with Brendon. I think you're going to see him start slow again next year, even if they add some talent like a Fletcher. Maybe a Fletcher Cox type. So he'll be at his best early in the year because he's fresh, but an older player. So maybe that'll help you to do that. Maybe more reason to go get the Fletcher Cox to give you some injection into the early part of the year. And I didn't respond to you, Brent, on that one. I agree with you on the Waldron one. Mine would be invest whole hog into the offensive line. I'm almost at that. That's it. Like if you just do that, if you just go hard at the offensive line, I think that brings about some great results next year. I really do.
Yeah. You got really lucky with the Curhan thing, maybe. So go all out at left tackle, go all out at center, or at the very least bring in a center who is good, and figure out what you want to do at guard. Hopefully it involves Damian Lewis back on the right side, because there he was really good. And it's not impossible. We're not asking, I'm certainly not asking him to get 5 brand new offensive linemen. That's ridiculous. That's silly. Not that that's impossible. The Chiefs kind of did it, but I don't even think we need that. You got to bring in a primo left tackle, got to bring in a good center, got to figure out what you're doing at guard, and you've got a chance. I don't know if you saw this, but ESPN posted a thing today. Our pass block win rate in 2021 was 15th in the league, above average. So you're not that far away.
No.
It's not like you have the worst offensive line in the league and everything has to go.
And to your point, Chiefs had to build. They went all the way for all 5 of their guys fresh this offseason. And you minimum have 2 of your guys / maybe 3 of your positions in place. So you are ahead of them. And they've got that group paid off for them, investing. But what it took for them to do, first round pick for Orlando Brown to the Ravens, second round pick into Creed Humphrey, go out there and sign Joe Thuney. Hell, they signed Austin Blythe from the Rams as a backup center. Not even as a starter, just to sign him as a backup, basically center, just to give themselves depth. It's about, this is my thing, concentrate on it. Put the resources into it. Make the investment you've not made in 10 years and watch the returns hit the field next year when Russell's got all that time to throw, when the holes in the running game are this much more wide and open than they have been in the past. You will get the results on that, returns on that, Brendon. I really believe that, almost on just that alone.
Yeah. And if Wilson goes out there behind a great offensive line next year and he still can't get it done one way or the other, then you will know that it's time to move on from this guy. But far more likely is that you see a much better product and you're actually able to make a run at things.
Well said. No more question marks if you were to move from Wilson at that point. You have given him everything you could have given him to be into that next level of success into his career, to put him into that MVP level type, to get him back into being a Super Bowl potentially competitor again. There's nothing he can say that you haven't given him to do that. So that answers that question as well, as going with that. Not only does it bring the results I think it will bring, but it also answers that long wondering question we've been kind of scratching our chin on for a while now, going with, could Russell be magnificent if you gave him a top level offensive line and then still got things on the outside to throw to and maybe a couple backs that could work with? I mean, I think he could maybe, well, let me get one more. We got one more donation here, Brendon, then we wrap it up because we are pushing in 2.5 hours here. Charles Riley, finishing up. You've put like 5 donos on the stream today, man. Thank you so much. He says, I will say Russ came back 3 weeks early and coach needs to be the one saying, Russ, you're not ready. Once again, another of my many fireable offenses. I'm in agreement on this one. I don't put it on Russ, him coming back early, Brendon. I put it solely on Coach Carroll's shoulders. The coach has got to be the one to override the player there, in my opinion. I really believe that. I think that's one of the places Carroll really, and he sold on Russ on this one because it made Russ look worse this year than he really is as a quarterback because he was not ready. And the coaches just got to look, I'm watching you in practice. You're not making the throws. I can't believe, Brendon, he was out there throwing laser beams, precise, pinpoint in practice, and then coming into the game and then overthrowing Gerald Everett by 10 yards. Can you?
Yeah, that's hard for me to believe. I mean, there are so many things that Carroll has done that feel fireable to me. Like, to me, the Jamal Adams trade alone. Like, if you're going to make that trade, you better make damn sure you don't have a bad season while you've given up those picks. You can't let one of those picks be in the top 10. Like, at that point, that alone should be fireable, I think. I think playing Kyle Fuller at guard single-handedly should probably be fireable because it just shows a complete lack of even the most basic football knowledge. Mm-hmm. I think teenagers who play Madden know that when you move a player from their natural position to another position, they get worse.
It would if you did it Madden, he would go from like 69 at center to like 57. Like Madden even understands within its building of its ranking concepts. Your player goes from center to left guard. You literally change his little edited player and you change him from center to left guard. He loses 11 points of his viability as a player. I mean, even they know it at that level. Madden's horrible.
And I mean, you could really stack up the fireable offenses that Carroll has done, but it's not going to matter for the moment. It's not going to matter right now. It doesn't look like we'll know more tomorrow, maybe, but we're rolling forward. Going to try to convince everybody this year didn't happen.
That's right. And me and Brendon are going to try to give you guys hope this offseason. I know many of you guys are hoping, and we need change. If we don't get change, it's going to be another year. Maybe maybe we're going to try to give you some hope, and we're going to try to ourselves remain hopeful on how this offseason plays out. And you never know. Nothing is a fixed in the NFL, Brendon, right? This is a league where it's got wild swings, and year to year things can change from one to the next. You can look like this and then suddenly look like that. And sometimes there's not always a great explanation for the turnaround. Sometimes it just is things breaking in your favor on a particular season, especially when you have a last place schedule, which we're going to be able to benefit from next season. And it's a little more with the extra game in the schedule.
And extra game against the Jets. Couldn't ask for too much better than that.
Easy dub, baby. That's just the easy dub all day. I'll take a Jets.
Although they're building a little something over there. I don't hate what they're doing. They're
No, I like him. I like the first year of it, and where it went wrong for them, they lost Carl Lawson early on, and that was really going to be where their bedrock of their pass rush. They've got Saleh there. He's going to need his Nick Bosa type or his Leo type in his defense, and that's what Lawson was going to be for them. And then you lose him, and that really, I think, kind of right from the start, kind of set them back. They lost Micah Becton, their top 10 first round pick last year. Fant played good for them though, by the way.
He did.
He played solid left tackle. So. Maybe they'll give us a little more of a game next year, but it sure is tasty licking my chops.
Better than going to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, better going to Pittsburgh. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, I don't need any more Pittsburgh on the road games. We don't seem to ever. We got a win there a couple years ago, but it seems a tough place to go.
Yeah.
Well, I guess let's wrap it up on this note. Any final thoughts from you, Brendon, on this team or this off season?
No, I think we got it all out, man. I think we got it all out for now. We're going to talk next week. We can maybe start drilling a little deeper into some of the specific outgoing free agents we have. But for now, I'm just going to leave it at that.
Sounds good. Yes. And we will be, as we do these shows, to Brendon's point on this off season, people have asked about the content and how we're going to do it. It's going to be a little bit like this show. We're going to be trying to be very poignant. We're going to be poignant. Absolutely. Pointed on the topics that we talk about and try to get it on so that we can get a full view of this season, off season, the full picture view, not try to cut any corners on this, to try to understand this team better as we move into next season and what's going to happen. Charles Riley says, with another $2 donation, says, easy dub. The Jets fleeced us in trades. Well, they got the trades, but we got the dubs.
Yeah, I mean, they beat us off the field, but we beat them on the field.
And which matters more, right? Especially when they're gonna crap the bet on these picks, Brendon. They're gonna crap the bet on this pick. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, we're gonna have to roll out that Jets draft fail montage that they do every single year at the draft. What is that? What was the guy's name? Roger Vick. What was the name of the quarterback they drafted? God, I haven't seen that montage in so long.
Oh yeah,
but
I know
ESPN busted it out all the time.
Oh, there's so many guys they've missed over the years in the draft. I mean, it's just Stephen Hill. Remember they made Stephen Hill like a high first, second round pick or something as a receiver.
Vernon Goldston.
Vernon Goldston. God. They've got like 5-core Gino, and they had the kid from Penn State they drafted. That's the one I think you're probably trying to think of in the second round.
Hackenberg. But I'm talking about like in the 80s. They had terrible picks in the 80s. That montage.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like if you watch that montage, it's got like Paul Tagliabue calling the draft picks. So that's how old it is. Just taking a bunch of people, and then you've got Fireman Ed in the audience of the draft room, like ripping his hat off after the pick gets announced.
I love when it's in New York. New York's the best place for the draft because the New Yorker reactions are always, they don't care, and they will always be just crapping on it. They had that draft, the 84 draft of the quarterbacks, the Elway Marino draft. I think they ended up with like Ken O'Brien, Charles Riley's type, and they ended up with Ken O'Brien, all these like Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and they come away with,
He wasn't terrible though. Ken O'Brien wasn't the worst.
He wasn't the worst, but boy, when you could have had Marino, or you could have had, there's about 4-core Elway. They weren't getting Elway on that one, but there was a couple, and I'm forgetting
Jim Kelly, I think.
Jim Kelly was in that one. I mean, when you miss out on those, and those guys went to the back end of the first round, if I'm not mistaken, that stings a little bit more on the side. But we'll see. Jets are doing okay. It's still, I like you said, I like having on schedule versus like them versus. Anybody else? I wouldn't even want to play like the Browns over them. Like Browns would be a tougher matchup. So.
Oh yeah. Browns might be good. Who knows?
They might. Who knows what they do with Baker too? You think they're not going to pay him, but they may move him and look at a different quarterback. Dark horse for Deshaun Watson, by the way. Dark horse for
Mm,
Deshaun Watson, Cleveland Browns.
makes some
I don't know.
sense. Makes some sense.
I'm just saying. Well, you guys, thank you. We had a great turnout again here. Well over 100 people up in the chat throughout the 2.5 hours we've been streaming here today. I appreciate Brendon going a little longer today, man. We had a lot more to unpack than we normally do, and we got to go a little longer sometimes on that. You guys are very kind donating in the chat. Save those donations up for next week as well. We will be back over on Brendon's channel. We're going to also be doing this as we go forward later on in the evening like this. So 7 o'clock time, Brendon, is that what we want to kind of
Yeah,
lock
yeah.
into?
I'm good with that. I'm good with that
All
for
right,
sure.
so we'll be going in throughout this off season. It'll oscillate back between my channel and his channel, 7 o'clock Thursdays, Pacific Standard Time. Come join in here. We're going to be talking about all these topics. And again, if you're not subscribed, go over there to Seahawks Brendon Nelson's channel. Great channel, great content. You're going to be thankful that you did. I appreciate you coming on into the house, Brendon. I always appreciate you letting me come in on your house. You always mind, take off the shoes, mind the rug, all that good stuff. I do appreciate that. No more natural disasters over there. Okay, man. No fires.
Hopefully,
I
hopefully.
want you to be double checking stove tops. Okay. Don't leave any plugs that slightly ajar in the plug. Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes, stuff goes in that direction.
Gotta protect it.
You got to protect it. Got to watch your back. Well, thank you guys for watching. Please hit that like button if you do like what you're watching. We appreciate you. And until we see you guys next week, don't you ever forget, go Hawks.
Go Hawks. I think he meant to end the stream, but he left instead. So I guess I guess I am taking over his channel now. I don't know.